Hello? Hello.
Hello there.
Everybody, happy Monday. Welcome to the start of another week. And I just deafened myself because I saw some dust on the microphone, you know. And I said, Jesus, I better blow that out of it. Well, I won't do. Well, I will. Well, right, hang on. Jeez, I can't hear it now. Now it's not working. I did it a second ago and it deafened me. It's alright, I got over it. Hope you're all keeping well. Tonight we continue with our FAA Conversion course, learning some ATC, friends, air traffic control. Basically what to say and how to say it. When to say it. And probably when not to say it. Do you know? We're progressing well on our VFR expeditions. Very soon we're going to be jumping over to the IFR stuff. And with the course into its, Jesus now, fourth week? Third week? I can't remember. We're into it anyway. Tonight, friends, we're going to be doing something, well, kind of mad, right? The busiest of the class of airspace that will find ourselves in VFR conditions, and, well, the busiest of airports, well, they live inside what's called a Class Bravo airspace. And the Class Bravos, usually for the largest, the busiest of airports. For VFR, it's not terribly normal that you get this kind of traffic in there, especially in some of the smaller aircraft. I mean, it makes sense. It's home of the tube liners. That's where they live. But you could, of course, be a VFR in, you know, what we're flying tonight, or indeed some of the other smaller general aviation aircraft, even some of the business jets. But Class Bravo airspace, it is like just the busiest airspace to fly in and out of. So our missions tonight, friends, following on with the Boston Virtual ARTCC, their WINGS course, flights 3 and 4, it'll have us fly into the Class Bravo, that's the first flight, and then we'll fly out of a Class Bravo, being the second flight. So tonight it's going to be heavily looking at our sectional charts and also the airport charts as well. A good bit of flight planning goes into this. And the good thing is, once we've figured out and understand the structure, in particular of the Class Bravos, it makes life an awful lot easier trying to navigate around in the United States, flying from airport to airport. I mean, we've already looked at the Echo and the Delta. Charlie airspaces we've already flown to. Now it's the Bravos. So yeah, it's all coming together. Do you know? In theory, anyway, that's the hope. But anyway, here we are on Monday. It was a busy weekend. We flew the flight of the Bremen. Yes, friends. Jesus, we completed 3:30 when we finished. And I stayed up for an hour because I'm in Egypt. 4:30. I was shagged yesterday. But we're grand today, you know, into the week that is. Busy day at work, you know. We have rain once again in Ireland. We missed it. And although today was still quite nice, there was showers, I suppose. Flat out on work. But here we are now, friends. For the next 3 hours, give or take, well, we're going to do some learning. Yes, that's right. Figuring out what sectional charts look at. We're going to have a look at some temporary flight restrictions and what to do and how not to do it. And yeah, focus on our VFR ATC voice procedure, the radio telephony, if you will. So it's going to be a bit of crack. How was your weekend? Did you have a good... now, as far as I know, we had 28 giveaways, and bar the P180s, because they go through your Microsoft account, everyone should now be sorted. So I'm hoping yous are all sorted. Do you know? But yeah, an epic flight, so much fun, loads of history, loads of beer. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. So we're back to kind of calmer surroundings tonight. And even this week, tonight, of course, we're flying the ATC stuff. Tomorrow, we got some trucking. Wednesday, we have the news. And then on Friday, doing something a little bit different. We're taking out a regional jet, the CRJ 700. And we're going to be flying from Phoenix to Vegas. Colonel 4 came up with that one. And then from Vegas over to Los Angeles. When we get to Vegas, we'll, you know, leave our aircraft and do a sneaky trip in a helicopter up and down the Vegas Strip. Then we jump back into our CRJ and ramble across to LA. So I'm looking forward to that one. Something different, friends. Do you know? Mondays, right? You know. Now, great news as well. Ireland is on a week, Monday to Friday, which is normal, but then we have a long weekend. We're off next Monday. Get up the yard. Then we have a short week, Tuesday to Friday. The week after, we have Monday to Friday, but then that one is a long weekend as well. This is tremendous news. Great news. What a time to be Irish. But yes, it's all happening now. Shall we ramble into the chat and say hello and greetings to everyone who has joined us here on this Monday evening at silly o'clock? Why don't we? Who's here, look? Naughty Gnome, good to see you. Mac Vision is in the house. Vacuum, a very good evening to you. Hope all is well. Super Typhon, you have information, LAS. Indeed. Spitfire, RAF 100 is here in the chat. Happy Monday. Lead Ballooner, good evening. Has everyone recovered from Saturday's stream? I'm still jaded. Anyone else jaded? No. The reverse Bremen, right? It'd be grand, lads, it'd be grand. Who else come in the door? The Forgetful Larry is here. Good to see you, Larry. Hope you're well. The Impossible Face, just about. APU Inspector, welcome aboard. Willem FS is here. Toto, 24.95. Welcome in, Toto. Max Stallion, good to see you. Fierce Wolf, looking fierce. And Wolfie, welcome aboard. Eamon, 1973. Hi, gang. Remember, gang. Hi, gang. Welcome in, gang. Good to see you, man. Who else come in the door? Idle Cutoff, Cambridge calling. Hello from Tipperary, you're looking well. Cy120, happy Monday. CP65, welcome aboard. Is it Bank Monday on the island? Isn't today like tax day in America? Is it return taxes day? Jesus, I can't remember how much that kind of something was. Creo, you're very welcome aboard. B. Carlo is in the house. Light Bison, good evening and welcome. Oh, come here, waiting to tell you, right? So my dad, right, Two-Tone Senior, he's out conquering the high seas of the Royal and the Grand Canal, right? Going out in the boat. But right, and I tell you this, he's up, I don't know where, he's near Carlow. No, he wasn't, he was up near Mullingar. And totally different. He was up near Mullingar anyway. And I got this photo from him the other day, you know, and it was of his knee. And I said, Jesus, it's shagged. You know, what did you do to yourself? So in pure, typical Murphy style, by the canal, they had this kind of you know, like a chicken wire that kind of stopped people from like falling over, right? And my dad being my dad, that's terribly dangerous. Someone's going to trip over that. So he went off and he spent about 25 minutes tearing up plastic bags. Greta would have went nuts. Tearing up the plastic bags and tying them onto the bit of chicken wire, you know, cable to make it look like, you know, you'll see it. Or so he thought. Whatever move he made, right? He was talking to someone. He said he was holding onto a hammer and he was talking to someone and someone asked him to get something. And I get that. He immediately turned around and walked forward, tripping over the cable he had spent so much time doing the stuff, geez. Right? So he said, my dad, he used to do judo, you know, back in the day. So he said it was the perfect judo fall. However, he fell forwards, and he said the hammer, whatever way he fell, it wasn't the nail remover of the hanger, you know, the claw. It was the lump, you know, the big heavy bit of the hammer, the head of the hammer. Right, we'll get there. Anyway, whatever way he did it, he turned that into the armpit, and as he fell, right, and then he burst his knee, and I kind of said, Jesus, then that's like something I do, you know. So you can see where I get it from, right? You know. But the good news is, anyway, he's all right. He you know, he got over it. He got over it. But then he bashed his knee. So we kind of said, so because you tried to make it safer, you actually made it more dangerous.
You haven't a clue what you're doing.
He said yes. He said yes. So that's what he got up to. You hate to see it, but sometimes when people fall over, it's hilarious. You feel bad. You're like, you're poor unfortunate. But at the same time, you're like, right, it's a terrible thing. He was all right now. Do you know? His ego got more of a bashing, but I thought it was very funny. But yes, anyway, the poor old devil bashed his knee. Anyway, who else is here? Look, Light Bison says, happy Monday all, from, where's this now? Press buttons, Murph. A rather grey Bristol. Be the Janie. 98 Vulcan, good to see you. Viper Strike is here. Good, welcome aboard. Good to see you, man. Cyrus T, the man of teal. Happy Monday. Short week this week, followed by a very long weekend. All right. Looking forward to it, man. This should only be 3 hours. Yeah, give or take, yeah. We've a wet but gorgeous sunset here in Aberdeenshire. It's happening, troops. Welcome aboard. Frankenstein is here. The Typhon ready with the clip, or to clip. Steiny, you're very welcome aboard. Hope you're well. Kazaki Flyer is here. He says, how are you and happy Monday? I got both PCs running. The mic, the camera, just no NDI sound. Small steps. We're rooting for you, Kazaki. Dougal McTavish, the chairman, has rumbled in. Good to see you, Dougal. Devil Fly, good afternoon. From Southern California. Ooh, hello from Tipperary. Hope you're well. Schutz is here. Mighty fine the wet Monday evening. Alright, it's dry at the moment. We're all right. Sir Caps-a-Lot, AJH man, you're looking well. Right over here, look. Muse fan bursts in the door with his left toe. He says, how he is just mad jokes is. Happy Monday, all. Muse, come here. I misspelled something this morning because I was busy. And what did he do? Like a true friend. It's okay, Murph. I'll sort it. No, he doesn't. What did he say? You're a special kind of idiot and you got it spelled wrong or something. Great bunch of lads. Anyway, still trying to complete a flight in career mode, says Light Bison. 3 CTDs. Jesus. Sidious, good evening. Little traders here. Adam Controls. I would say happy Monday, but they're never happy. Tell me why. You don't like Mondays. Shuffle Shoes shuffles in. AJH John, hope you're keeping well. Tilly Flyer, welcome. Stick Figure is here. A perfect spring day in Missouri. Ooh. Wait, you blew the microphone. No, I did. Air. Blow it on the whisht. Good afternoon, says Paparazzi. 2 hours left on the last Qantas flight. 9,000 miles. Glad it's about. Oh, Jay, you what? You've 2 hours left. 9,000 miles. Look, Jesus. Stu Snape is here, celebrating tonight. Wife's results came back. Nice. Great news. Great news, Stu. Jesus, great news. Have a pint. Have many. Great news, man. Proby Pete, hello from Arizona. Hello from Tipperary. Hope all is well. Who else came in the door? Heisenberg, good evening. Naughty Gnome, indeed. Strap21. Hola. Welcome aboard, man. Flight Sergeant in the house. Welcome in, man. Old Veteran 965. Scott, a very good evening to you. Hope all is well. Who else? Let me see here now. Epic Fool is here. Flat out lying down at work. You're flat out lying down at work. How's she cutting? Airlock Doc is in the house. Good to see you, Airlock. Dougal says, me poor L car went to the giant scrapyard in the sky today, so I am careless as well as careless. Careless as well as careless. Jesus, Dougal, though. What sort of car was it? Malky Mac, welcome aboard. The DA-42 out for a couple of flights. Oh, nice. The weekend was busy, says Scott. And I was in the word of Murph, shagged. Today finished the Texas, good for another year. No, he didn't say Texas. He said taxes. This is going to start off bad. I can't speak tonight. You know, I did an awful lot of speaking on Saturday. So Scott said he did his taxes, not his Texas, because that wouldn't make sense. Anyway, moving on. That reminds me, if you haven't got it already, get the Fly Tampa Vegas scenery. It's class. Is it working on 24 though? I need to find out. Doing the Sidewinder route, right? We'll have a look at the route planning tonight. There's a fair whack to this one now. Do you know? Kevin, good evening. Soaring AJ. AJH man, hope you're well. Bet you do another LAS this Sunday. She wouldn't know. Captain Mustard, good evening. Shut says, do you not get Good Friday off for Easter as well? No, Jesus, no. Well, I say, I was asked the question earlier on, you know, do you work on Good Friday? I said, no. I'm present in work, you know. I'm in attendance. I don't work though. I sit there planning, thinking about what I'm going to do next. Takes all day. Right, Mitsuki, good to see you. Tenured is here. Airlock Doc says, so to be fair, I like Murph, but my favourite Irish dude is good old patio furniture. Life is not the same without him. Patio furniture, brilliant. Tried some traffic patterns today, but no ATC was around. Sadly, well, no worries. Don't worry too much about that. If you're practicing the traffic pattern, it's just building up muscle memory, so it's good. Do you know? 98 Vulcan. I'm coming to grips with my complimentary 1 month sub to say intentions. Thank you, Murph. I'm struggling big time at the moment, having caught myself a good dose of Bijani, so may not make it the whole way. That's okay, man. Take it easy. Crazy Little B, welcome aboard. Who else come in the door? It's tax day. Spent all weekend doing taxes for Uncle Sam. Jesus. It happens. That should be Tilly Country in, Clackmannanshire. Good man, Tilly. Sounds lovely this time of year. You sit people down to watch video fails and everyone laughs at the ones where the guy hits in the jewel. That's what happens, Airlock. It's terrible funny, you know. Mr. Bremen Flight, busy watching Rory McIlroy win the Masters, says Proby Pete. I didn't see it, but I heard it was brilliant. One of the lads stayed up till 2 o'clock watching it. It was supposed to be brilliant. Hydrospace, good evening. PH Roy is here. Welcome aboard. Good to see you, Roy. But yeah, Wicked Lumberjacks, you're looking mighty. Fornax jumps in. Who else come in the door here now? Grand is here. Phantom Diablo, welcome in. Evening. Just testing ETS2. Ooh, ETS2. We'll be in that tomorrow. I did my taxes in Texas and sent much money to DC. Yes, the triangulation effect, indeed. Phantom Diablo says, good news about the daughter. She's home from hospital and 6 months recoup. But the main thing is she's home on the mend. Great news, Phantom Diablo. And thanks for keeping us up to date, man. Takes even longer for Murph at work if he has to verbalise it. Right, do you know? Steve, absolutely. Rory McIlroy, brilliant. Although he was I was looking at the highlights. He spent a good chalk at the back nine, trying to lose. Brilliant. In a box, man, good to see you. Hope you're well. Right, quick, Zang. On over here, look, we have a quick say hello to our YouTube friends. Timmy Dodd is here. Hello from Guernsey. Hello from Tipperary. You're looking well. Marty K, good to see you. I'll do Charles here. Northland Air, welcome in. Dave Cleary, you're a legend, Dave. Welcome in, Dave. Hope you're well. Mrs. TPHI, good to see you. Uniform Goose. G'day, Goose. Visualize is here. Surviving the apocalypse. Happy Easter. Many happy returns. Johnny Shue, good evening. He says hello from Denmark. Hello from Tipperary. Mr. Anderson, no good deeds go unpunished, right? Who's this? Pedro. Welcome in, Pedro. Where am I? Paradise Heaven. Welcome in. Welcome in. How's she cutting, lads? So yeah, we've a night of kind of checking out sectional charts, and they're just important and handy that you understand them. That's all. You may never want to use them again if you're not going to be flying online, but it's fun seeing the challenges and the restrictions on a chart when you want to go kind of flying around in VFR conditions. It's always a bit of crack, right? So we're going to jump over here and, well, I suppose jump straight into it. We'll do one of these. Ah, yes. And then we'll do one of them. Right. So we're here with our beautiful Flying Fries Gabrielle aircraft. This is our machine for today. And look at the state of the weather. Absolutely gorgeous. Clear skies. 'Tis a little bit windy. Live time and live weather. So ideal visual flight rules flying, right? Absolutely ideal. Do you know? So we shall start off, friends, at the beginning, where it all begins. And I have a web page here. Welcome to the website, and this is our website, twotonemurphy.com, and Gibbo Ireland, the absolute legend, has tidied things up to make it look very professional. Unlike I had it, it looked like you need it with a crayon. So when you click on the Learn ATC series, this is way more nicer and tidy. So you can see where we have our VFR ATC, our IFR ATC, and then we have our FAA Conversion series. So you go in and click on that. You can then see a link to all the course videos we currently did. Again, Gibbo is an absolute friggin' genius the way he's managed all of this. It looks very good. We also have our ground school document, which we'll tap into here now as well, and a link to our IFR checklist if you'd like to grab that. Anyway, our ground school document, what we're going to be focusing on tonight, well, it's heavily based on the VFR sectional charts, right? And I suppose we'll start off tonight figuring out what's on these charts that we need to have a look on, all right? So as we go down through all the different contents, all the different areas that we need to learn, we're going to go down here where it has, we have VFR waypoints, and then we have understanding FAA NOTAMs and temporary flight restrictions. So we need to understand them, figure them out, right? So we'll click on that, and it'll bring us to page 235, and it says understanding FAA NOTAMs and temporary flight restrictions for VATSIM pilots. When flying VFR in FAA airspace, it is essential to be aware of the NOTAMs, notice to air missions or notice to airmen, and also our temporary flight restrictions. These notices provide critical information about closed runways, airspace, restrictions, hazards, and special events that could affect your flight. While VATSIM doesn't really enforce all of the real-world NOTAMs and TFRs, understanding them enhances the realism and your operational accuracy, right? So we're going to delve into this a little bit. What are NOTAMs? Types of NOTAMs and how they affect our VFR flying, temporary flight restrictions and their impact on our flights, how to check NOTAMs and TFRs, and then VATSIM considerations when it comes to our NOTAMs and TFRs. So a NOTAM, notice to air mission or notice to airmen, basically it's providing pilots with critical information about changes to the airspace, the airport, and procedures that aren't yet published on your chart, on the airport chart. For example, an example could be, taxiway Alpha is closed, there are cranes, in the vicinity, all this sort of stuff. Runway closures, airspace restrictions, nav aid outages. So they could say nav aid, you know, if you're flying in around Disneyland, you know, the Goofy 6 arrival is no longer active. Construction work is at the airport, so they could say, you know, construction at Terminal 2, taxiway Bravo closed, all that sort of stuff, right? Well, birds in the area, they can do, but birds in the area tends to be on your ATIS report. They'll tend to be on your terminal information service. Do you know what I mean? Because that's bird activity could be hourly or minutely. Do you know the kind of a way? You might hear it on a NOTAM if there's increased activity for whatever reason. WIFE's NOTAMs are most important, right? In the real world aviation, pilots are required to check NOTAMs before every flight. And while NOTAM enforcement on VATSIM is limited, controllers may simulate these for events or special airspace restrictions. So just be aware of what they are, all right? So the different types of NOTAM. So your airport NOTAM. This could be down to the airport operations, closures of runways, taxiways, lighting, right? So you can see something like this. See the writing that we put down here? So it's runway 18 left, 36 right, closed for maintenance between 0500 and 1200. And you can see that on the NOTAM, yeah? So basically what they're saying is runway 18 left and 36 right are closed for maintenance between 0500 and 1200 Zulu time. So VATSIM controllers could do something like that, yeah? Airspace NOTAMs, so they could be restricting it. So it says here, Class Delta, surface to 2,500 feet, MSL, closed to GA aircraft between 1400 and 1800 Zulu due to an air show. That's important. So it's saying here, the Class Delta from the surface to 2,500, mean sea level, closed to GA aircraft. They don't want you in there because there's an air show. All right. Navigation and communication. So it could say this one here, the NOTAM affects VORs, ILS, ATIS frequencies and so on. So they could say the DCA VOR is out of service or OTS until 12th, or this is America, so it'll be 15th to 12/24. All right. Wonder if Say Intentions handles NOTAMs yet. I have heard NOTAMs on it, or, you know, you can check NOTAMs. Usually for me, NOTAMs will always come by way of Navigraph. That's where I'll check them. You can pick them up from the real world as well. What else do we have? Special use air service. So some restricted or military airspace may be active at certain times. So for example, this says or 2502 active between 12 and 2300 Zulu, no VFR operations allowed. So what they're saying is the restricted area of 2502 will be active between 1200 and 2300 Zulu, and VFR flights must avoid this area. All right, so they're NOTAMs. They're notices for us. Information that's, you know, could be temporary or it's so new it hasn't made it onto the charts yet. All right, excellent. What about temporary flight restrictions, or TFRs? What impact do they have when we want to try plan our route, okay? So a temporary flight restriction, it's a special type of notice to airmen or notice to air missions that prohibits or restricts flights in a specific airspace or area for a limited period of time. These restrictions are enforced for either security, safety, or operational reasons. So some of the common types, you have presidential or VIP TFRs. So, you know, US president, vice president, foreign dignitaries, and strictly enforced, no VFR traffic is allowed inside of that. So you can see on our little ground school manual here, you know, the type of traffic or temporary flight restriction, the purpose of it, and what's the impact to you as a pilot. All right, Gar Gaming, good to see you. So wildfire, this goes without saying. So a wildfire restriction prevents aircraft from interfering with firefighting operations. VFR flights are prohibited inside this boundary. All right, look at this one here, look. Space launch TFRs, all right. Protects airspace around rocket launches, usually down at the Cape. VFR aircraft must stay clear of the TFR airspace. And we're going to have a look at these now in a moment, because there are active TFRs on our flight for tonight, all right? So TFRs, they're highly enforced in real-world airspace. VATSIM controllers may or may not simulate them, all right? Avoid TFRs for presidential movements, stadium events, or disaster relief areas. Basically, if you see a TFR and it's active, stay clear of it. The important thing here is when it's active, because we can figure out if and when they're active, yeah? So how do we check this stuff? Where do we find it out? Well, you can go onto the FAA NOTAM website, which is noted there, notams.aim.faa.gov. Or you can check out SkyVector on its NOTAM layer. You can use ForeFlight. Also, Navigraph has it as well. And that's where you can grab them from. The same when it comes to TFRs. So you can check out the FAA TFR website. They'll give you all the information there. SkyVector has it. And then VATSIM controller briefings, ATIS, pre-event notices. That's what they'll have all the information for you. All right? The key takeaway to this, lads, before departing from any airport, check for NOTAMs. Charts, and more charts. All right? Your VATSIM considerations for NOTAMs, again, check to see what's happening. It'll be on your VATSIM ATIS. The controllers will let you know if there is an event on. So just kind of have a read before you delve into it. Are we happy enough with them? Okay. So let's have a now look here. Tonight's flight, we're going to be following the WINGS flight 3 and 4. All right. So what we can do here, looking at our sectional map here, this is SkyVector, free website. These are called sectionals, US sectionals. And basically they broke up the entire map of the country into sections, hence we have sectionals, because back in the day, you'd be able to buy one of these. It usually came in a paper chart, and it'd have this sort of crack here. That'd be your chart, right? Folded over about 10 times. I have a whole load of them over here. We use them digitally now, which is great, because this is the whole country digitally put onto a chart, right? Which is deadly. But if we have a look here at the VFR, and let's have a look. Here's one up here. So we're looking we're down here, down at Quonset, and we're going to be heading up over Providence and then in towards Boston itself. So we can see all these red circles. Well, these are indicating TFRs, temporary flight restrictions. Okay. So there's one over here. It says here, there's a TFR. Its number, see that 5-600 or 6001? It's security. Okay, there's a security detail happening. We don't know what it is. Could be political, could be it could be anything. It's security. Now you can click in on this. This should give us more information, so we can see exactly what's happening, right? Temporary flight restriction, special security reasons. UAS ops may be authorized to defend this airspace in compliance with all this. So it's right, there's whatever security is going on. What's UAS? Can anyone tell me? UAS, right? If you click on it, it's going to tell you what the crack is. Anyone know what UAS is? So the authority who gave this out is under the CFR sections of Boston. Unmanned air systems. Unmanned air systems. So what they mean by this is all relatively new. No unmanned air systems operations are authorized. Drone activity, isn't it? Unmanned air, it's drone activity. Exceptions are specified below. Yeah? So do we get the idea? So let's go back in. So there's an area, but let's have a look at this, lads. See the way it says effective from the 21st of April at 11:30 Zulu to the 21st of April 1600 Zulu. The restriction is from the surface up to 2,000 feet above ground level. Will be live in 7 days. So what are we talking about? Are we able to fly into this area right now? Yeah, it's pretty low. It's only up to 2,000 feet. So are we allowed to fly into that now? What do you think? Hey, drone. Yeah, it's all drone stuff. Yeah. Yeah, we can fly in there, 100%.
Hello
right?
there.
Because it's not in effect. Correct and right. Fear, thank you very much indeed for the follow. So yeah, it's not active yet. So of course we can. All right. So it's no factor. We don't need to worry about it. And if in 7 days' time we need to worry about it. All right. All right. What about up here now? Look, let's head up towards kind of Lawrence, up this neck of the woods. Here's another one. It's security, effective on the 19th of April, right? From 0900 to 2100 Zulu, from the surface up to 1,000 feet, and that'll be active in 5 days. 5 days. Same crack again? Yep, we can fly into that. All right, heading into Boston. Aston. And we can see all these stadium icons. See that stadium icon? There's a whole load of these all around. So let's zoom in here and see what's happening. We got 2 of them, look. Okay, well, let's have a look at it. This one here, there's a TF4 effective from the 21st, from surface up to 2,000 feet above ground level, and it's going to be active in 7 days. All right. Move in a little bit closer. That's in 7 days time. However, here's another one from the surface up to 1,000 feet, and that's going to be active in 3 days time. Now, chances are, if we click on this, we'll probably get more information. Boston, Massachusetts, grant temporary flight restrictions. Sometimes they'll give you more information. They could say, yeah, listen, there's a parade, there's there's a football match, there's a baseball match, all that kind of stuff. And they're in and around stadiums, so you're going to get the idea. All right? So they're TFRs that we can look at. Temporary flight restrictions, right? Now, what about a permanent flight restriction? Now, when I say permanent, it depends. So here we are in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, right? See this, from surface up to 18,000 feet, valid until further notice. So can we fly into this one? And if you say, yes, we can, well, tell me what altitude we can fly into this, or minimum altitude we can fly into. You know, above 18,000 feet. So yeah, you can enter this airspace, but not below 18,000 feet. Yeah? And as you get kind of closer and closer, see this one here, look. So what's this, right? Washington National. Look at this weird shape here. Effective from the surface up to 10,000 feet. It's down as hazards. Okay, so this is security, but in here there's a hazard. And it's valid for 26 days. So security around Washington, D.C., 18,000 feet, yeah? And you have another one out here, 18,000 feet. And then you have this one in here, there's a hazard. Okay, what else do we have? Let's scroll down here towards Florida where we were last week, right? Disney World. Security, the surface up to 3,000 feet above ground level, and it's valid until further notice. So yeah, I mean, you can absolutely fly into this area, but not below 3,000 feet. And think about it, right? You're not going to go at 3,010 feet. You know what I mean? A lot of these TFRs come into play because there's drone activity everywhere now, yeah? But this is for us as flying, even as simulated pilots, right? When we're flying on VATSIM or whatever, this is where we're kind of focusing in on, right, where can we or where can't we fly, right? You see, there's all sorts of stuff here. There's loads of TFRs. There can be hundreds of them, depending on where you're flying, what you're flying, and what you're doing. This one here now says hazards. All right. So what might a hazard be? From the surface up to 2,000, valid for 21 minutes. What might be going on in there, considering it's telling us there's special military activity in this area? Yeah? So what might a hazard be? Could there be live firing? Live firing, there we go. Could be, right? Training mission, so there could be live firing, especially if it's up to 2,000 feet. Range of an average bullet, 900 meters, give or take, maybe 1,200. You get the idea, yeah? Small arms firing, they're not doing missiles or any of that stuff. Now, in Europe, lads, it tends to be a little bit different. We don't see these kind of TFRs. There are prohibited areas, looking at some of the charts in and around Ireland, for example, right? So you can see areas like this on your chart. These would denote no entry zones or minimum altitudes. I know the ones, there's some in and around the Phoenix Park, for example, right? EIP-11 or 18. There's one down around Portlaoise Prison. This kind of stuff, right? And you'll find them more on different charts. It's going to be the same in the UK, right? But because our focus is on North America, this is where we're getting the information for the temporary flight restrictions, all right? Now, there are other restrictions. There's restricted airspace. There's prohibited airspace, all right? Our focus tonight is on the temporary flight restrictions. So outside of St. Louis here, we can see that there's a baseball game. It's going to be live in 3 hours. So from 22:45 Zulu until 03:45 Zulu, from the surface up to 3,000 feet AGL, you're not allowed to fly inside that little pocket. All right. Not all TFR are MOAs. Could be over a stadium for a big event. Yeah, that's what we're looking at here. Yeah, it's not all necessarily for military work. So a TFR could be, you know, VIP. It could be security. It could be firefighting, right? Or it could also be something going on at a stadium. This is the one that we found here. The Astros at Cardinals. That's what's happening today. It's going to be live in 3 hours' time outside here, St. Louis. And we can't fly inside that airspace during that time between the surface and 3,000 feet AGL. All right. Now, you may have special permission to fly inside of those areas. For example, you could be law enforcement, you could be search and rescue, you could be, you know, friggin' TV crews, you could be a blimp. But they would all have special permissions to fly in these areas. In particular, when you're down in and around Cape Canaveral, when there's a launch getting on, well, certain TV crews can obtain this special permission. They're either given a unique squawk code or they're given a security call sign.
Dreamy, sleepy, nighty, snoozy, snooze.
That's how they do it, right? The stadium is in downtown St. Louis. Nice, nice. Muttley, good to see it. But yeah, almost all of those Saturday TFRs are for college football. Yeah. It depends on the time and date. You can check them out. I remember when the you know, the fires over in LA, it was just this neck of the woods was covered, you know. Like here's a military one, that's up at an Air Force base, that's up at Beale. Security, okay. What else do we have? Stuff down here, security. Rockies at Dodgers are playing in just north here of Los Angeles, look. And that's going to be live in 5 hours, yeah? So you get the idea, right? These are TFRs, just be aware of them. Like when you're doing your IF4 flight planning, most of the time these aren't going to be, they're not going to be impacting you because you're IF4 and you're going to be talking to ATC and they're routing you, yeah? However, when you're flying VFR, we have an awful lot of more freedom because, well, we're not as controlled as much. We can ramble around. Once we stay away from certain airspaces, we're kind of free to go where we want, yeah? However, if you're flying along and you're going to plan a route, what we're going to be doing tonight, we need to take these guys into consideration because they're going to affect what we're doing. Yeah? And there are different colours for it, but it's either red or orange. Just go by, when you see them circles, you'll see what the crack is. They are TFRs. All right? Pedro, have a wonderful dinner. You take care. The METAR will note if there are traffic restrictions. They can do. So, for example, it depends if there's if the TF4 is near the airport. So here's the METAR for Boston, for example, right? Logan. So that's the METAR. The ATIS information will probably give it to you. The NOTAMs will give it to you. Yeah? The NOTAMs will give it to you as well. All right? So let me see. You can see, so you have your ATIS, then it goes into TAF, and then it's telling you what the weather is going to be doing. But it's not necessarily telling you, oh, by the way, there's a traffic restriction over here. The NOTAMs probably will. All right, well, let's see. We can bring in NOTAMs from this. So you've DROTAMs, but where was there NOTAMs as well? Airports. Let's look at KBOS. Give it a moment. Lawrence Logan. All right, what do we have? Airport communications. Our frequencies. Information regarding the runway. All the runways. There's a clatter of runways. Other remarks. Here we go now. Look at this, right? Birds on in and around the airport. Numerous cranes in and around the airport. Runway 1432 is unidirectional. No landing on runway 14. No takeoffs on 32. Yeah? Pilots should complete all calculations prior to pushback. Runway status lights in operation. Noise abatement. Runway 15 right is preferred for takeoff. What else do we have here? Terminal E, North and South cargo arrivals, contact Massport gate control. You can see what I mean, yeah? We're getting loads of information here, and this is all for free, lads. This is all from Sky Vector, all right? So it's all free. In vicinity of. Yes, that's the one. In vicinity of. In and around. Now, you can also get this data over on... Navigraph. So, again, we have a look at the charts here, and let's go in and look at an airport. So here's Quonset. Let's go in and have a look at Boston. So we'll open up Boston, click on the NOTAMs, and now we can see all the NOTAMs for Boston, yeah? So we can see today, for example, runway 15, same crack. In the last 7 days, what's happening? So this is where you're going to get your NOTAMs. You can go in then and look at the weather. You can see the METAR or the ATIS. Real world ATIS, we don't have that on VATSIM just yet. The real world ATIS up in Boston at the moment, it's information Papa. So we can see Boston ATIS, information Papa, 1840 or 1854 Zulu, winds 300 at 10, gusting 19, 240 variable 310. Visibility is 10 miles, scatter clouds at 2,500, 19 degrees, dew point -3, altimeter 2972, Approaches are being conducted to converging runways, ILS runway 27, RNAV 32, and departure runway 33 left. Read back all hold short instructions and assigned altitudes. Increased bird activity in the vicinity. Hazard weather info for New England area is available on the flight service frequencies. Yeah. Numerous cranes in Boston area and in vicinity of Logan Airport. Advise that you have information Papa. There's all the information we have. We would hear that on the radio when we tune into it, but that's what they're. But that's the real world. The VATSIM stuff tends to be very close to it, but you kind of see what we're doing, yeah. So when it comes to flight planning, our first flight tonight, which is from Wings, so go back into Wings. We've already done the traffic pattern, and we've done a VFR navigation flight from Nantucket over to Quonset. So tonight we're going to be entering the Class Bravo airspace from Quonset because we're going to be heading up to Boston Airport. We're heading up to Logan. So let's go in and have a quick look. So this VFR rating flight is going to take us from Quonset up to Boston Airport. The key difference between this and the previous rating is that you will not be receiving flight following en route. Now, in the last lesson, we always advised, listen, always ask for flight following if you can. However, sometimes it's not always available. So what do we do? If it's not available, well, we kind of have to take more responsibility, if you like, for our actions. Yeah, in particular when it's coming in and out of different airspaces. So if we're not getting cleared or followed and handed over to the next controller, well, it means we need to revert back to our ground school. How can we enter that airspace? What are the rules for flying into that airspace? So we'll get into that in a moment, right? Being able to interpret different airspace classifications on a sectional chart is an essential skill for any VFR pilot, especially when flying around busy airspaces. Alright, it's also equally important to understand the requirements for entering these airspace types and knowing when you are required to talk to air traffic control. This Wings flight will take you from Quonset Airport up to Boston Logan under VFR conditions without flight following. Because this flight involves several different types of airspaces, it's important to review them all before we take off. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to plan this flight and see how we get on, right? In the upper right hand corner over on Sky Vector, you can open up the Boston TAC, the terminal area chart, and we can check out the well, that's it there, we can check it out. It tends to be more detailed, yeah. Terminal area charts are available for every Class Bravo airport and are specifically intended to aid VFR pilots. They've made this for us. Brilliant. Now, Quonset lies in a Class Delta airspace, which is depicted by the dashed blue line surrounding the airport. So we'll have a look at all this in a moment. It indicates that it extends from the surface up to 2,500 mean sea level. The Class Delta airspace is controlled solely by the tower controller, or if the network is live, the overlying radar controller. Remember VATSIM's top down? Yeah? Alright. Immediately north of our airport lies the Providence Class Charlie airspace. That means that's a bigger, busier airspace, right? It's depicted by the solid magenta rings. And unlike our Class Delta, the Class Charlie airspace extends beyond the immediate airport area, and it has several different sectors or layers. Think of the wedding cake, it has different layers that shape out the way, yeah? All right. The portion that overlaps is marked with 41-13, meaning that it's from 1,300 feet up to 4,100 feet. The inner core of the Class Charlie is denoted as 41/surface or SFC. That means it's the surface up to 4,100 feet, and it extends. The Class Charlie airspace is split between the tower controller at Providence and the approach controller at Providence. When airspaces overlap, now don't worry, we're having a look at this. When airspaces overlap, the operating rules associated with the more restrictive airspace apply. What we mean by this is, when Class Charlie and Class Delta airspace overlap, well, the Class Charlie airspace takes priority. For example, directly over Quonset you have a Class Delta airspace extending from the surface up to 1,300 feet, which is at the very bottom of the Providence Class Charlie airspace. Above the Class Delta airspace, Class Charlie extends from 1,300 up to 4,100. Only the southern tip of the Class Delta lies on the outer ring of Providence, and that's where we get its full height. That's a whole load of different things, but I want to show you what we're looking at here, right? So we'll go back to our back to our charts here. And it's telling us open up the Boston terminal area chart. All right. So lads, we're starting from this airport here. Here's Quonset. This is where we landed at last week, right? So we're going to be departing this airport. So we're going to plan our departure from here. And looking at the chart, well, we can see this dashed blue line? See the blue line here? Yeah? Well, that's your class Delta, right? That's your class Delta. And you can see here, we can see this 25. That means this airspace is from the surface up to 2,500 feet. However, see the way this dashed blue line is actually going inside this magenta line, yeah? Well, that means this magenta line, from this section, it's at 1,700 feet to 4,100 feet, yeah? But see in here, it's actually from 1,300 feet to 4,100 feet. So if we go above 1,300 feet, we're actually inside a Class Charlie airspace. And there's rules. We can't just ramble into it. We need to talk to them, yeah? So we have a bit of flight planning to do here because, you know, we have a couple of ways in which we can plan this route. Our flight is going to be from Quonset over to Boston. So that's going to be our destination. So there's our flight plan. Now, what do we do about this? Right? Now, Naughty Gnome with a question there. Murph, 5 miles northeast, there's a large blue 08. What does it mean? 5 miles northeast, there's a large blue. This guy here. So that's to do with the shelf of the airspace and also your terrain stuff. Again, if you're unsure, where's the move you over? If you're unsure, we should have the key. Let's see if she's on it. Let's have a look now. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. No. No. What's you over there? Usually when you see numbers like that, Naughty, it's to do with the it's to do with like kind of minimum altitude or safe altitudes. Usually. I just want to make sure I'm correct though. For example, right? If you get off this chart and you look at other VFR areas, right? You would see outside of that area, let's come down here a little bit. Maybe not a great example. But see, you see them down here, right? Then we're over here. This is relatively low terrain, right? Okay. What happens when we get into the mountains? So we look for a bit of kind of mountainous terrain. Here we go. See the way they've changed now to 6.6? So it's to do with altitude. Minimum... Is it MSA? Minimum safe altitudes. Like, you head over this neck of the woods, these are probably going to the 10s and 14s. Yeah, the 10s and 14s. Yeah. Each square has a minimum safe altitude. That's it. That's it. All right? MSA. Yeah, that's the one. Minimum safe altitude. So the numbers that we're looking at up here, Naughty Gnome, come back to where we were. These numbers here, your minimum safe altitude in these areas, well, here's 2,400 feet. Here's 1,600 feet. Here's 1,300 feet. Here's 1,000 feet. Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay. So 800 feet is minimum safe. 1,300 feet is start at Charlie. So 1,000 feet, exactly. 1,000 feet will avoid it. Exactly. So let's focus in on what we're trying to do here. So let's kind of role play this out. When we take off from this airport, we know that if we go above 1,300 feet inside this area here, yeah, this area here, if we're above 1,300 feet, we're now gone into that Class Charlie. What if we stay below it? Okay, we could stay below it. We could fly at, I don't know, 1,000 feet, for example, and that's going to stay under the Class Charlie airspace. All right? Okay. Well, let's start planning a route here and seeing what sort of an idea we can get, right? So if we look at the Boston TAC, because it's going to give us way more information, yeah? And we'll get into, there's other obstacles on the ground that'll affect your minimum safe altitude as well. Bearing in mind as well, if you're flying VOR over heavily built up areas, usually they want 1,000 feet clearance. You can't be skimming the tops of buildings like at 50 feet. These are all things to consider. So if you're planning to fly at, say, 800 feet over, you know, in your altitude, and next thing you want to fly over a city, well, that's not going to work because there's minimum altitudes you need to keep from buildings and stuff. We'll try not to get too confused though. So what we'll do here, we're going to take off from Quonset, and we need to figure out a couple of things before we go. We got to check the weather, we got to check the active runways, we got to check to see if there is actually ATC control. At the moment there's not, right? I don't know if the lads on tonight. I can't remember if I asked them, but if they're not on, they're not on. If they're on, brilliant. Doesn't really matter for what we're doing tonight. This is heavily learning on the charts, yeah? So, what would be a good way to get ourselves from this area, being mindful of the Class Charlie, all the way up into the Class Bravo, right? There's a booking from 9 p.m. Come on, Epic Fool. This should be on now, online in a moment. Remember what I said? We plan hard and then fly easy. Plan hard, fly easy. So you're planning, we're going to spend more time in planning, so our flight is easier. We're not going to, if you plan a difficult flight, if you're going to plan a difficult flight, you're going to have a difficult flight. If you spend more time planning and really make things a little bit easier, your flying is going to be a lot easier. And this is what we get to do when we fly VFR. In particular, when you have detailed charts like your sectionals flying in the US. All right. So let's have a look at this. We know we want to fly into the Class Bravo, and she starts here. See this outer blue line? Now, see this purple line outside of it, and then you have a blue line. Well, this is called the Class Bravo veil, or the Class Charlie veil. It's like a veil, right? But it goes, it's between certain areas. And usually, once you kind of fly at this veil, you're usually told to start getting in contact with Boston Approach, and they usually want you to have mode C on your transponder, which is automatic altitude reporting. All right. Merv, you could also ask ATC for a transition through the Warwick airspace so you can fly a VOR to a fix. Yeah, you absolutely can. You absolutely can, right? Let's look at VORs. We can see there's a VOR sitting over here. Yeah, the Putnam VOR. That's an incredible way to help us along with flying. All right, well, let's have a look at it. If we're going to be flying across the country here, and let's say when we take off, we're going to stay at 1,000 feet, we can go right or we can go left. I don't want to go into the Rhode Island airspace. We can ask them, hey, can we get a transition? Can we go through? Of course you can. But let's plan it this way. Let's say, right, we want to fly at 1,000 feet and we want to intercept a VOR station over here. Okay. We can't just go in a straight line, because look what happens. Plan the Putnam VOR. If we plan to fly straight from the airport, we're going to end up entering this Class Charlie. We can't do that, right? So we don't want to do that. Okay, well, let's go back then and look at things like our visual reference points. Your VFR VRPs, visual reference point. All right, so we're expecting that we're going to be departing off runway. What are you? Let's have a look at the charts, airports. Let's go back here. Let's look at Quonset. Info, weather, METAR. All right, what's happening here? So, automatic weather, winds 260 at 8, gusting 21. Jesus, it's windy. Clear sky. So the winds are coming in from 260. All right, let's zoom in. If the winds are coming in from 260, well, then we're going to be taking off runway 34. More than likely, right? All right, so we're going to take off runway 34. Now, we need to be careful, because if we're going to be departing to the west, well, we need to turn long before we get to here. Now, there's a golf course ahead of you. Murphy's Law, if you get to the golf course, you're going too far. So you're going to be looking prior to that to turning left. Okay, so that's one option. Left turn is an option, or indeed a right turn is an option. And our plan is we're going to stay beneath that Class Charlie. We're going to stay under it. Fair enough? Now, with ATC, if there's top level on, we can ask them, we want to take off and transition through the Charlie airspace until we get over here somewhere. And that's going to be planned when we're talking about what altitude we're planning to fly. Yeah? Why would you not use runway 23? Why would you not use 23? It may not be active. So if we look at, I don't know, airports, runways. Oh, you could use 23 either. You could, of course, yeah. It depends on what's active at the airport, Colonel 4. Yeah, 2-3 probably makes better sense, actually. It's less of a freaking crosswind. So we're going to use, yeah, we'll use runway 23. 3-4 gives us an 8-knot crosswind. 2-3 gives us a 1-knot crosswind. But we need to make sure if it's active or not. If it's active, we're laughing. Now, bearing in mind, it's a much shorter runway, but for our aircraft, we're fine doing this. So yeah. So if we're going to be taking off this direction, well, we have a whole load of options now, because look, if we maintain our heading and stay at 1,000 feet, we're going to leave the Class Charlie airspace, and then we're back into kind of, you know, your echoes and so on. Yeah? So yeah, we absolutely could do that. If we're departing this way, we can go either around to the left, and I'm looking at that VOR, because that's just going to be easy to kind of fly to. Or you could go over to the right. You have another VOR station over there. Like, we're kind of spoiled for choice. Not only that, we actually have a VOR. You have the Providence VOR. So we can actually fly a radial off the Providence VOR outbound. Do you know what I mean? Black Sheep Gene, good to see you. Alright. So, if we're going from runway 23, you'll probably get a reverse radial or a back course on Bedford as well. There's loads of options. Again, lads, plan hard, fly easy. There's no right or wrong way to plan this. You do it for your own comfort, I suppose, or you know, hey, do you know what? Yeah, I'd love to fly over there. I like the look of that. Or I want to look at these wind farms, or I want to fly over this, you know, reservoir. That's what you can do with VFR flying. IF4, you have to fly their airways. They stick you to it. Do you know what I mean?
Ted, I've been drinking like a mad idiot.
Drinking like a mad idiot. You know what I mean? For VFR flying, you have great options of what to do and how to do it. So let's say, for example, right, we're going to be taking off from 2-3. All right. And how far down this neck of the woods do we want to go before we turn? Because, well, how long is it going to take you to fly the route? Yeah? So let's look at a couple of options. So if we're saying, look, we're going to fly this direction here. I don't want to go anywhere near that Class Charlie. So let's say, right, well, we can fly down this way here. And let's see, is there something? Oh, there is, look. That's still a little bit kind of close, but we can use that VFR visual reference point because we used that last week. The Jamestown Bridge, yeah? So we can actually fly down to the Jamestown Bridge. And once we get to the Jamestown Bridge, hang a right. And that should keep us out of harm's way. We are a little bit close there, but we can pick another VFR waypoint. Look at this, look. Okay. Well, we got to be careful now because we have altitude over the ground or altitude above the obstacles. You got to be careful with this stuff. But we could fly close to that wind farm. Very close to it. We don't have to fly over it, but we'll fly close to it. So when we get down to the bridge, it's going to be a right turn, staying at 1,000 feet because we're still below. We can go higher here. Look, that's 1,700 feet. We can turn right, and out we go this way. Once we get to this wind farm, it's going to be another right-hand turn, and we can fly in on the VOR radial, which is probably on the radial of 15, 16, 17, 17, something like that. All right. Once we get there, it's going to be a right turn, and again, we're going to fly outbound on the radial on the 678, on the 08 degree radial, and that's going to point us now heading in towards Boston, into the Bravo. Yeah? Now, there's other things we can do. We can say, right, well, we don't have to fly straight out because, you know, is there a risk that we're potentially going to fly into a TF4? Is there a risk that we're going to fly into someone else's airspace like this? Yeah, you have a Class Delta inside a Class Bravo, but you have to respect the Class Bravo for this. Yeah. All right. So that's going to the left. Now just have a look at this. That's 82 miles. That's about 50 minutes of flying. Okay. Let's try it another way. So let's get rid of this part. What if we go the opposite direction? What if we take off and we're saying we're going to be off runway 23? Yeah. And we can pick the same waypoint, the Jamestown Bridge. But what if we go over this way now? Let me see. Jamestown Bridge. And there's a little airport here. There's all sorts of lakes here. What about this Tiverton Tower? The VFR visual reference point. We can see it by the flag. All right. Because we're flying visually, right? We don't need our instruments for this. We're flying visually. Okay, so take off over to the Jamestown Bridge. We'll see the Newport Bridge. If we want, just fly over the bridges. That'll really keep us clear of this Class Charlie, yeah? All right. Plus, we're familiar with these areas. We've already flown these areas. We flew this last week. So, we're familiar-ish. All right, when we know what the bridges look like in the sim. All right, let's do that. Then we're going to be heading over this neck of the woods until we get to this Tiverton Tower. All right. Now, we're kind of drifting in a little bit close to that Class Charlie. So, well, what else can we see? Well, look at the size of the lake here. Huge lake, massive lake, and the shape of it. Well, that's a great visual reference point we're going to see from the air. Yeah. What else do we have up here? Bogs, plenty of bogs. See these icons here? See these dash lines, and then you have a big aircraft. Yeah. These typically mean the approach or departure routes of a Class Bravo. So they're basically showing you. This is where the heavies are flying. They're usually this neck of the woods. Because if we were to go up and check what a Star or a SID was, you tend to see these are some of the main ones. So you'll only probably see that on a tack chart or your sectional, right? So they're just letting us know in our little general aviation aircraft, well, these routes here, by these big guys, that's what the airliners are using. They tend to use these for arrival and departure. And they give you a little bit more information. Look, from 17,000 down to 6,000. That makes sense. They're arrival routes, yeah? We'll probably get a departure route. Here's a departure route. So from 6,000 up to 14,000. See this? So that's what they mean on your charts. They're showing a little icon of an airplane to say, well, look, these are the arrival or departure routes that the heavies are using. All right. Just be aware of it so we don't get a shock. Flight. Now, over this neck of the woods, and it has been mentioned, if we look at Bedford Regional, yeah? Well, what do we have in Bedford Regional? Well, it's an airport. Okay, is there a VOR over here? Anyone see a VOR? If we wanted to just help ourselves out? Maybe, maybe not. Adam B. Twitch, thank you very much indeed. The jets will be kept in Class Bravo. Beyond that, they'll be higher up. Yeah, yeah. Fall River should have a honking great battleship more there. Ooh, Malky. Really? Fall River, that's here, yeah? Okay, we're still that little bit close though, so I want to kind of push this over a little bit to the right, a little bit east here. So here's a tower, we've another wind farm, yeah? Little lake, that's okay, let's plan that. And now we're kind of rambling up here, look. And then we need to figure out when we're going to enter the Boston Class Bravo. All right. So again, we can look for different landmarks that we know, hey, once we get to this area, we're going to be at, this is where we need permission to enter the Class Bravo. And you're not allowed to enter the Class Bravo until you hear you are cleared through the Boston Class Bravo, or you are cleared through Boston's Bravo. You can't enter it until you hear that, right? You could be chatting about the Bremen flight with the controller. You ain't getting in there until you hear that magical word. You are cleared to the Class Bravo. We got to be careful of that. Right, okay, look, what's this? Bridgewater. What's Bridgewater? And again, we have another VFR reference point. Now, that could be just the area, the town, right? All right. And it is keeping us away from TFRs. All right. So, okay, let's say we're going to head towards Bridgewater. Okay. Now, this route, it's shorter. It's about 20 miles shorter. Yeah. So it's about 40 minutes of flying, give or take. And we know, once we get around the Bridgewater visual reference point, we're still outside of the Class Bravo. So to me, this is a relatively safe area. It's a safe area. All right. Now, if the waypoints between each of your visual reference points, if they're too far, create more of them. And then you can add them to your log, or you keep your chart open and you can see what's happening, right? So as we're flying along, we're going to pass Fall River on our left. Here's another wind farm we can check out. Okay. There's a golf course. That should be easy to see from the air, right? As we continue to fly up, we have some man-made obstacles here. There's stacks, right? All right. There's also this Taunton Municipal Airport. Okay, that's pretty handy. We can fly over him. We're going to see him from the air. An airport? Of course you're going to see an airport. Yeah? And then we're up into Bridgewater. So from our flight planning, this looks pretty good. Pretty good. The Slick One, thank you very much indeed. So what about our altitudes, lads? what altitudes now do we need to start planning to fly at? Well, we know when we leave the airport, you know, 1,300 feet, that's when the Class Charlie comes into effect. So we're staying under 1,300 feet initially. Then, as we leave the airspace, remember the Class Delta is from the surface up to 2,500 feet. But once we leave this, we can climb a little bit. Can anyone remember the rules for traveling west or east? Odd, even, odd, plus or minus 500. Can you remember that from last week? And I suppose the important thing here is it really, technically according to the FAA, that's only in effect above 3,000 feet. But like, I would always maintain if I'm going east, it's that. If I'm going west, it's that. Even odd. You can stay under the shelf, plenty of time for that VFR point. Yeah, absolutely, Gain. Going up to 3,500 would work, yeah. East is odd, west is odder. There's whatever way you can kind of remember that. I always struggle. I always have to double check. Jesus, what is it? Is east odd, or you know what I mean? East is odd, west is even. All right, so we're going westerly. We need an even altitude plus 500. So that's going to be 2,500, 4,500, 6,500, 8,500. Because we're VFR, we need to make sure we have a separation point between us and our IF4 traffic. IF4, they don't fly at the plus 500. They usually get the rounded off altitude, 2,000, 4,000, 6,000. For us, because we're VFR, they keep us right in the middle. 500, which is loads, it's plenty, right? Even odds apply to north-south as well, they do. So basically how they work it is, they'll say that, 0 degrees and, 179. That's classed as eastbound traffic, right? 180 to 359 is based as westbound traffic, yeah? Westbound traffic. So we're heading east. Yeah? 360, 179, 180, 359. Correct and right, yeah? Correct and right. There is no zero, no. So, yeah. So 0, 0 to 1. Yeah, pretty much. Or 360. I think we need more of your drawings. Why, Gibbo? Gibbo, I was just alerting everyone to your absolutely amazing, gorgeous editing to the website, where everything now looks like it wasn't painted by me with a crayon upside down, and everything's very sleek and beautiful looking, and I thank you very much indeed. Gibbo did all of this. He's a legend. The man's a legend. So points in the chat there for Gibbo, lads. So anyway, what we're looking at here is... Have we live? What time are we? 9:15? Okay, nothing just yet. We've a bit of life over here though. Cleveland is on. Where are we at? We're over here. So because we're heading east, yeah? Because we're heading east, it's going to be an odd altitude plus 500. All right. Because it only applies on or above 3,000 feet, when we take off, I think we're safe enough flying at around, when we take off, we're going to stay at 1,000 feet until we get down to the Jamestown Bridge. Okay? So we would write this down in our nav log. We're going to get down to the Jamestown or Newport Bridge at 1,000 feet. Once we get to these, we can now increase our altitude. Okay. So we can go now to 3,500 if we wish, or we can stay at 1,500. That's up to us, lads. That's entirely up to us. If we're going at 3,500 feet, it's giving us loads of scope. We're staying out of airspace. We're doing all right. We're miles away from anyone's danger. Bearing in mind, at that altitude, if we don't get this right, we're going to go straight through that Class Bravo. Because see here in the Class Bravo, the Class Bravo starts at 3,000 feet and it goes to 7,000 feet in this area. Then we get closer, it's 2,000 feet up to 7,000. We get closer again, it's the surface up to 7,000. Yeah? So if we're at 3,500 feet, which is absolutely fine, but if we make an absolute mess of things, we need to be very, very careful not to blast through this Boston Class Bravo. Now we could say, okay, What if we do, 2,500 feet? You can. You're not enforced to fly at odd numbers under that magical 3,000 feet. So we could fly at 2,500 feet once we get down to these bridges, yeah? And by doing so, that's giving us a little bit of clearance of about 500 feet if we overshoot that entry. Because we can fly all in this area here once we remain below 3,000 feet. Is it making sense? Are you kind of getting the idea? Yeah? Your hacksaw Jim Duggan with the poor sight. Sorry, Gibbo. Where's this now? Gain Green says that's where you fly a lot. That's what's it called? Haven something. I know that ICAO code. That's over here, isn't it? You fly it around 75 square miles west. I'm pretty familiar with these areas. Okay, sweet, nice. So what do we reckon, lads? 2,500 feet? Would we be happy with that? I think so. Let's go with 2,500 feet. Now we'd be telling ATC what we're doing. Hey, we're going to be flying at 2,500 feet or 2,500 VFR. All right. So we might go 2,500 or we might go 3,500. Well, why don't we go 2,500 for a little bit and then we can climb? We've all these options, yeah? All we need to make sure is, though, we do not enter the Boston class Bravo until we have permission, until we've been cleared in which we're going to be saying, request transition to the class Bravo to land at Boston. We'll worry about the exact phraseology here now in a quick moment. All right. So we fly straight in. ATC are going to clear us. All is going to be well and around. They're going to give us then our arrival procedure, as in, this is the runway, enter left base, all the sort of stuff, right? Don't enter the Boston Bravo without clearance. I don't know what I said. So we're staying away from anything, at least I can see. Norwood Memorial, we're not going near him. There's no restrictions out here that I can see. So I think we're going to be good. This to me, this looks like a relatively safe route. The start of our flight I'm very comfortable with because we have these bridges. After that, it's a left turn. We're looking for this Tiverton Tower. It's a big ass tower, 1,000 feet up, right? After that, there's going to be a wind farm. Keep going. There's going to be a golf course way off on our left. There's going to be another wind farm. Stay going. There's bogland out to the right. Don't know how well we'll see that, but we're going to be picking up this East Taunton Airport. We definitely will see that, right? And then once we get to Bridgewater, we can give a shout. Now, technically, yes, you could be at 2,000 feet inside this area and then request clearance. Yeah? You can ask for that clearance then. You know what I mean? Only issue I have is, if your departure from 2-3, why even go south when you can just stay under the shelf and fly a more direct route? From 2-3. Well, yeah, you can go hard left. You can go left, follow the traffic pattern and head up this way and stay over this neck of the woods. Up by Bristol. Is that what you mean? Father's game. So you'd be turning left off 2-3 and then head up this way, up by, we say, Bristol. Yeah, you could do that. Of course you can do that. Absolutely. Like, you have the options. The reason why I'm doing this, I flew in this way last week. So my only familiarity with this area are the bridges. All right. So again, well, I'm familiar with the bridges. I know what they look like. They're bridges, yeah? So I'm going to follow those. Then I now know I'm completely away from the airspace. I'm not worried about infringing on any of the class Deltas or Charlies. We're just away from airspace. So that's why I'm planning it this way. And I want to have a look at this tower. It says Tiverton Tower. What does it look like? You know what I mean? Got your TAW train on. Why now? Sweet. But yes, you absolutely could. Look, lads, our option, if we knew there was ATC, we could talk to ATC and then we can request transition through the Charlie airspace over Providence. Absolutely no problem. No worries at all. You can do that. But for us, for this flight, this is what I'm looking at, right? I'm fairly happy with this. In fact, if I drag this little fella here over the airport, He's now added to my route, so I now know I have an additional VFR waypoint that I can see what's happening. All right, so that's the route I'm taking. I'm happy enough with that. All right, and there's a whole load of stuff here. If I look at my nav log, this is going to give me timings. It's going to give me where all the different user waypoints are, altitude, what I'm going to be flying at if I put it in correctly. So we get the idea, right? And then all your timings. So when you're flying in VFR, you got your map, you got your timings, you have to allow for wind, deviation if it's blowing ahead of you, beside you, all these things. But right now, don't worry too much about that. This is purely us flying. We're going to be flying at altitude 2,500 feet at a speed, not 250, you muppet, at a speed of about 120. All right, 33 minutes, and that's how it's going to look. We can now open up our own little nav log, and then you're going to see all your different altitudes. That makes sense? And you can print this off, you can download it. It's also going to give you the airport diagrams for what you need. This is all free, lads. All free, yeah? And you can grab this, put in your squawk code, your clearance code. You can print this off from SkyVector. It's a free website. It's awesome. It's awesome, right? So we'll leave that to one side. That's what we're doing. I'm happy with that. Lovely. Come on over here. Oh no, hang on, keep this up. FATSIM radar. Any activity yet? Negative. So we're going to be starting from here. There's a departure there already, and we're going to be heading into Boston. So if we don't have ATC coverage for this, let's not worry. Say intentions is there. That's going to give us a bit of help to it. But let's see what happens. Into the wings course, it's going to give us information here. We have the option, if you're going to be flying from the class Charlie and Delta, you can talk to Providence, VFR request, right? Providence approach, 5 miles southwest of Quonset State, request transition to the Charlie airspace. So that's if we were going to be flying over Providence. I'm going to keep us away from that, so we don't need to talk to these lads. All right, continue on. What are we going to be doing? Well, we're going to take off, we're going to head south, down to the bridges, and then we're going to hang a left. All right. So this is what they've recommended. They took off and headed straight out. They weren't necessarily, well, they were up over Bristol, look. So they were going that route. But it's kind of similar, lads, isn't it? I mean, look, that's kind of similar to what we're doing. Similar enough. What do we need to say? All right. This is what we're going to be saying to the controller when we contact Boston Approach, yeah? Boston Approach, who are we? What's our information? We're 25 miles southwest at 3,500. Request clearance to enter the Boston Class Bravo airspace to land at Boston. At that stage, we'll probably get a squawk code. We'll repeat it. They'll advise us radar contact. Cleared into the Boston Class Bravo. Once we hear this, cleared into the Boston Class Bravo, we're laughing. And then they might say via direct Boston. Or they might say, you know, enter left, whatever. You're getting more instructions of what you're doing. Maintain VFR at or below 2,000. Well, at or below 2,000. You're no longer in their airspace, but remember, you're going into the airport, and that goes from the surface. Expect runway, and then they'll give you an expect what runway. All right. Are we going to give this a bash? I think so. I think so. Now, what do we say on our initial take off? So we will talk to Quonset. We're going to say we're VFR. How do we say it? Again, if you're unsure what to say, right, go back to the previous lesson, because that's where we did our VFR flight. So it's going to be Quonset ground, request taxi, VFR departure to Boston at, you know, what are we going at? 3,500. We will not be requesting flight following. All right? We won't be asking for flight following. Okay. Well, let's see what happens, shall we? Now, you don't necessarily have to file a flight plan, but for me, I'm going to file a flight plan, right? So another free website is SimBrief. So this is what we're going to do. Don't worry about the airline. That's where we're departing from. Generate that flight, right? And then we're going to tell them what it is we're doing. Actually, hang on. I wonder, will it take the route from SkyVector? This could be interesting. I wonder. Enter our route here. Analyze the route. Yeah, brilliant. So I've changed my flight plan to VFR. I've copied the route I've just taken down from sky vector, and I've put it into SimBrief. Look at this. That is my VFR route, 100%. Yeah, it's valid. You're all right. You're not going to die. Brilliant. Generate that flight, please. Right? Can I send the route? Clem, absolutely. I'm going to give you the full route now. And for anyone who'd like to fly along, if you don't want to do the ATC side of it, lads, that's quite okay. Even if you just want to do the flying part, that is the route I'm about to fly. All right? Right. Now, let's go ahead and pop this onto a network. Pre-file on a network. We're going to go to VATSIM, pre-file. Are you who you say you are? Be Janie then, I hope so. The advantage of this now, you can actually import this into your SimBrief, so you can follow the map. You can do all this sort of cheating. We like the cheating. And that'll be all grand. So let's have a look here now. VFR map. Auto IFR, other VFR modified. How do we change this now? Map. Yes. Yes. How do we change the map? So VFR sectionals, yes. And terrain, satellite. The base satellite. Go away with that. VFR. How do I do this now? VFR satellite world map reset. VFR. There we go. Right. Yes, I'm a human. Despite popular belief. Sign in there now, Betsy. Now, we call sign. I am November 235 Romeo Mike. VFR. I'm in a Gabrielle GABR. Light, grand, SFG is on board, transponder C, departure, arrival, altitude 7,000, no, altitude is going to be 3,500 feet, airspeed, roughly that. It's going to take us about 40 minutes flying. I've fuel for about 2 hours. Route details, right, so that's the route where I'm going, all right, and then the remarks down here, we're going to put in wings, #3. Wings flight 3, file the flight plan. Flight plan has been filed. We should be good to go. He isn't human, he's Robocop. Right. So let's just focus on what we need to say. Write this down so we're comfortable with what we're saying. So we're going to do our initial call. It's going to be Quonset ground, November 235 Romeo Mike, requesting taxi VFR departure to Boston at 3,500. That's it. All right. We'll keep this to one side. Later on, then he'll read back. We'll get our taxi instruction. We don't need to worry about the. We'll then go on to the next page because we're going to be flying outside of the airspaces. All right. So let's have a look over here. Now, do we have any ATC coverage? I don't believe so, but let's double check it. We'll go ahead and turn on VATSIM. If we don't have it, it's not a big to do, lads. I'm not worried. It'd be great. It's great to have it, but we can use say intentions as well. So let's get vPilot up and let's see what happens. So let us connect to the network. Other objects and models load in. And failing that, we can just use say intentions. Now, bearing in mind, say intentions may not give us the most accurate read back. Not overly worried. But once we know what we're doing, we're doing. Once we know what we're doing, we'll be grand, right? So let's do a quick connection. Is there any frequencies on the ground? Let's give it a moment and load up. So you can see there's an aircraft there in VATSIM, which is great. Who have we got? Probably not, Scott, because one is going to give you the other. Okay, so there's nothing that I can see on VATSIM. That's okay. So we're gonna go with we're gonna go with say intentions, right? And let's see what happens here. Now, hopefully this works. And this, you know, we don't get too much kind of stuff. Waiting for your flight, reconnect. This will all connect here now in a moment. Now, it should be able to read my flight directly from SimBrief. Identity. SimBrief call sign overrides. Yes. Headset. That's grand. That's grand. The group for this, not
It's
know
not the
if
plane.
you have this.
It's the pilot.
KBOS booking disappeared. Yeah. Anyone who's flying, if you want to jump onto say intentions, you can use the group code TTM. You'll appear. Miscellaneous, ATC, live weather, source, live weather. That's okay. Preview. That's okay. And that's okay. Right, new flight. And we'll just pop this over the side and let's see what happens. So by reading this and reading our instructions on the other side, let's see what's going to happen, right? So reset our views. Let's jump in. And let's see what happens. So start off with remove view. Grab it the canopy. Bring it over to tablet. Lock the window. Double check our fuel. Live fuel. That looks good to me. Alright. Alright, so let's get ourselves up here. Prop goes to full. Mixture rich. Open the throttle a small bit. Come down here. We have our battery. Fuel is looking good. Anti-collision lights and nav lights can come on. Quick check. Landing gear is in the down position. Park and brake is on. Auxiliary fuel pump can be activated. Mags left and right come on. Let me see. Main fuel tank is on. That looks good. That looks good. We can get our avionics up and running here as well. With this aircraft, we're quite okay. That looks good. That looks good. Seems a bit quiet in here. Circuit breakers are all in. And we'll say clear prop and we'll go for a start. You don't have say intentions? Okay, we'll go join FS. Good start in the engine. Bring up the alternator. This is the Gabrielle from Flying Fries. Awesome, awesome airplane. Beautiful airplane. Right, not going to do too much with our taxi lights here at the moment. Let's have a look in here. So we'll OKU. Now the 8 is 118.6. So we need to find 118.6. So 1186 transfer.
23. Advise on initial contact. You have information November.
Negative, sir. Landing Boston.
Quonset State Airport. Information November. 2015 Zulu. Wind 1000 at 5. Visibility 10.
Controller.
Sky conditions.
Report.
Clear. Temperature 21. Dew point -2. Altimeter 2971. Density altitude 900.
Okay. You see, we can fly this on VATSIM, but the problem is we're not able to talk to anyone in relation to getting our Class Bravo. Like, there's no one online to give us that permission to get in there. Do you know what I mean? Now, by all means, we can simulate it and say, hey, we're now at this area. This is what we're going to say at this location. We could do that, right? Like, if you're using Unicom, you could do. You absolutely could do. Master caution, cancel that. Pitot heat needs to come on. So let's see there.
00 feet. Arriving and departing runways 34, 23.
So information November. Park and brake is on. Reset our directional header. Altitude for this one, we were saying we're only going to go up to about 1,000 feet, wasn't it? So let's see here now, Murph. That's grand, that's grand, that's grand. That's Barrow. Right. That's heading. Where is this now?
908, Charlie Echo taxi to runway 13 left via taxiways Delta and Echo. Taxiing to runway 13 left via Delta and Echo Cessna 908.
Let's see what happens.
Charlie Echo.
Quonset ground. November 235 Romeo Mike. Request taxi. Information November. VFR to Boston. I never gave me altitude. Let's see how this plays.
Bremen 1167, taxi to runway 34 via Alpha. Contact tower on 126.35 when ready.
Why is it identifying it as that? Taxi runway 34 via Alpha. Contact tower on 126.35 when ready. So the identity there is wrong. November 2 3 5 Romeo Mike. Alright, let's try that again. Right, say intent is on use sim brief override for IF4. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so we have our information. We're going to taxi to runway 34. So they're giving us runway 34. Yeah. Open our little charts for this.
Parking via Bravo, Delta. Have a good day. 55 Golf.
Oh, ba 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 ba.
Flight level, ready to taxi.
Pan Air 12, clearance on request. Stand by.
All right, so taxi lights coming on.
5 Echo Mike, follow the Falcon. Then continue
Takes
to
off.
Charlie Tree. Following the Falcon, continuing.
And let's see what happens. Lots of flaps while we're doing it. We're going to head up here by Alpha. Ground directed runway 34. You can ask for 23 if you, as the pilot, believe it's safer and better for your flight. You could do. So the ATIS already told us it's going to be 2, 3, or 3, 4. So the clearance they just gave us, I said, look, go down there to 3, 4 via Alpha. Yeah, we could change that. But we'll keep it going. I say, I use Say Intentions Premium. It's literally worth you screaming at Jesus with every cabin announcement. Sky Command, welcome in, man. Alright, let's get our lights on. Before we go, transponder, we're squawking VFR. I usually only horse this in when we're leaving, but we're on Alpha. Usually they give us a cross one rate, but we're okay. You can still ask, you don't have to blindly follow. That's how accidents happen. You're the pilot, still responsible for your flight. Yeah, you can ask. They could tell you to shag off though.
This baby
You know?
hits 88 miles per hour.
But like, for the sake of this, it's no real factor on me. We could say, listen, we're going to be dealing with a much higher crosswind. Your aircraft mightn't be able for that crosswind. So that is definitely something you'd have to consider. ATC, I mean, okay, you can tell them what aircraft you're in, but they're not the pilot. So what Colonel Fork is saying is 100% right. I, on the other hand, I'm an Aegis, and I like the challenge. You know what I mean? So let's see what a massive crosswind does. Do you know what I mean? But he is 100% right. I mean, if ATC is telling you to do something that you know is dangerous, you know, it's up to you. You can't say, I was only doing what ATC told me, that's how I crashed. That dog just won't hunt. Do you know what I mean? Right. So, we need to talk to who? 126.35. 126.35. Transfer. 126.35. Quonset Tower. November 235 Romeo Mike. Holding short runway 34. Ready for departure via 4. 3,500 to Boston. Or words to that effect. Train like you fly, so you fly like you train. Yep.
November 235 Romeo. Mike, Quonset Tower, runway 34, winds 360 at 5, cleared for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, runway 34. November 235 Romeo Mike. Right, we're squawking, we're talking, and now we're walking. Runway 34, quick check on the right, quick check at the left. Look at that crosswind. Woohoo, this is going to be fun. Easy now, Jemima.
Fife Romeo Mike, runway 34, winds 360 at 5, cleared for takeoff. After takeoff, fly runway heading until reaching 3500, then proceed on course to Boston.
It was kind of doing well until we got to that point. Clear for takeoff, runway 34. And after departure, we'll be making a left turn, heading south, and climbing to 3,500. Did I connect to join FS? I thought I did. Now he'll probably tell me negative now. Let's see what he says. Let's just go with it. Power coming in! Hup, you devil you. Right, watch this friggin' crosswind. This is going to be hilarious. Speed is alive. Coming up on 60. There's 60, 70. Oopsie daisy. So there, it is gusting, but doesn't seem to be too bad. Doesn't seem to be too bad. Positive rate, gear up. And remember, we're going to be climbing no more than 1,000 feet here. Maximum demonstrated crosswind of 15 knots.
Extend downwind spacing for arriving traffic. Extending downwind skylane 422 Alpha Mike.
So our objective here is to stay out of the Class Charlie, which is it's a couple of miles out. Yeah, it's about 4 or 5 miles away from the airfield. Flaps coming in. Keep that nose up, Murph. Up, you devil it. So usually, kind of 400 or 500 feet. That's when we make our first turn off here to the left. Now there's a good chance ATC will give out to me here, but I'm not flying into that. Say intentions, it's not trying to mimic VATSIM in terms of a top-down controller. It'll probably just hand us over then to Providence. Do you know what I mean? B&O Railroad, it is the 111th anniversary. Was it 19... When did the Titanic go down? 1912, was it? This day, back then. Jesus. So here's a left turn. There's 1,000 feet. Watch that. Bring our speed back a little bit. Easy now. So at this stage, right, we're staying under the Class Charlie. We're still in the Delta, that's fine, but we're not going near it. There's that bridge. See that? That was on our VFR flight plan. So we're looking at that bridge, and we're going to stay at 1,000 feet until we get to that bridge. Right? Easy now. Don't smash through it, Murph. And then once we leave this bit of airspace, they would hand us over, you know, they'd say no more ATCs available. You know, monitor Unicom 122.8. Alright? So that's what we will do. So we'll do our own radio calls from here, just to give you an idea, alright? Because with say intentions, it's not going to simulate what VATSIM does. VATSIM will always go to the highest controller, and if you're just not in their airspace, right, get over to Unicom, good luck to you. Say intentions will most likely push it onto the next controller, you know? So once we get to this bridge, we can start climbing then as well. Because we know we're going to be outside.
0199 Quonset Tower, enter left downwind for runway 23.
Let's see what it says. So from the surface up to 2500, once we're outside of this Class Delta, we're fine. So here's our VFR reference point. Once we get to the far side of this bridge, we're laughing. And then we're going to head over to the other bridge. So far so good. Again, we're just monitoring out for other aircraft, seeing what the crack is. Is there anyone there? We're out of everyone's way here at the moment. So we've now left the Class Charlie airspace. Way out of that. So now we're just going to be flying down onto the serious wind. Now we're just going to be flying down onto the Delta. So we're still inside the Delta airspace. So we got 15 knots pushing us here. So it'll actually give us a bit of a tailwind now when we start turning. So it's going to be a little bit of a left turn.
Skyline 542 Alpha X-ray expedite.
And we can start climbing now.
Traffic on departure.
So we're going to start rambling up there to about 2,500. Pruden, good to see you. So we can start climbing out now. We're going to be going for 3,500. Up you go, you devil. Fly over this bridge. Easy now. There's 3,500. And we'll start climbing up. Beautiful scenery, yeah, it's really nice. And considering where we were kind of last week, real world weather versus today, it's beautiful out there. Now, because we're not doing flight following, right? Because we're not, it shouldn't be a flight following flight. We should be handed over to Unicom and then away we go. Well, at this stage, you'd then be announcing to other traffic, you know, Quonset traffic, November 235, Romeo Mike is at, you know, 1,200, climbing 3,500. You'd be alerting other people on VATSIM, on Unicom, right? That's what you'd be doing. So we're going to continue up. It's going to be a left turn over this area. And again, we'll bring up our plan here in a moment.
01 Bravo, hold the taxiway Alpha traffic on final.
So get a bit of height in.
9001 Bravo.
We can also get our autopilot to help us out here a little bit as well. Autopilot, let's go heading mode. And we're going to climb here. We go IIS. Bring that speed down a little bit so we can climb a little bit faster. Let me see. IAS. That doesn't want to work. Why aren't we climbing? 3,500 feet. Really? 3,500 feet. Come on, Betsy, you can do it. There's 3,500. Indicated airspeed mode. Can I bring this down or up? There we go. That'll give us a fair bit of climb here, what we're doing, right?
All aircraft information Oscar is now current. Altimeter 2970.
2970.
All aircraft information Oscar is now current. Altimeter 2970. Alright.
So let's have a look on the old mappage where we are now, yeah? Because we were looking at how we were planning this flight. So we took off, we turned around, headed to the south, got over the Jamestown Bridge, then the Newport Bridge, and now we're heading up this way here, up towards this Tiverton Tower. Now we're climbing up to 3,500 feet because we're outside of anyone's airspace, yeah? So from here then it's going to be a small left turn. We're going to be going over a wind farm near a lake, yeah? So that's our next visual reference point.
Winds 220 at 14, runway 23, cleared to land.
Okay, so we're looking, now we are drifting with the wind, yeah? So let's see, we're looking for this Tiverton Tower. I got some stuff over here. I'd say that could be it there.
Clear to land, runway 23, Skyhawk 19.
So it's after a body of water, which is where we're at the minute, yeah? So we're on heading mode, but we're getting blown around, so if we just adjust our heading a little bit. We have a 20 knot tailwind here, so we just want to watch that. Altitude. Up the hill now, come on, up out of that. Climb like a boss. The wind is pushing you all over the plane, right? It's like half of the pigeon house chimneys. Yeah. There it is there, look. That's the divot, look.
Skyhawk 199, roger. Execute the go-around. Enter left downwind for runway 23.
Okay, so that's Tiverton Tower, seemingly. Alright. Well, it's easy to see, lads, isn't it? Definitely easy to see. So after that, we're going to be looking for a wind farm. At the base of a little kind of a lake. Alright. Altitude is still coming up. We're looking good. It's not modelled in 2020. How much to get to change a bulb on the tower, right?
199, roger. Enter left downwind for runway 23.
Now we can go to, what can we do? Let's go to Unicom now ourselves. 122.8 transfer. We'll stay on that, right? 122.8. Alright, we're still climbing. We want to head up to 3,500. We can see that that's the tower we wanted to pass. Next up, visually, it's going to be a wind farm, or at least a windmill, close to a lake. I don't see the windmill. I do see the lakes. There's other stuff over there. It could be that one there. It's definitely not these two. So I reckon it's this guy here. We're just looking for a windmill somewhere over this neck of the woods, right? Alright. What's your speed here? So 160 knots coming up now on 3,500 feet. Level off. Bring our mixture out a tad. And that speed is going to absolutely start booting it up there. Alright, we're doing good. So it's going to be a small course correction here now in a moment. Look at this aircraft, lads. Look at the view you have in this machine. Isn't it awesome? Okay. So we have nothing by way of ATC. We're simulating as if we're on Unicom. Alright? The tower was a bit anticlimactic. Yeah, well, it was tall. You know, it was tall. So I'm not seeing a windmill around here, but that's okay. There was a cemetery over here looking at the map. There's a cemetery over there, look. That's a cemetery. Okay, I know where I am. So there's going to be a small course correction here to the left. There's a cemetery. So next up now, it's going to be over, what's this, Mount Hope Bay. Flying up at the lake. So we can see that city there, the town there on the left-hand side. So we're okay at the moment. I know where I am, famous last words, right? So at 3,500 feet, we're outside of any controlled airspace, alright? We'll be tuning into Boston here now shortly, just to have a listen. See, there are windmills, but there should have been one back here somewhere. There's one further off out there we can see. So what can we pick up here? Our next visual reference point was going to be Fall River. That's Fall River. Okay, I'll keep the river there because we're pretty much following that up this neck of the woods. Yeah. And we're going to keep going until we're getting up to the Taunton Municipal Airport. So we know that there's an airport a little bit up the road here. So we'll follow that in. Our speed is looking good. Again, we have ADS-B up and running. Operation is normal. We can zoom out. We can see an aircraft behind us. Same altitude. You're back there. So there's good separation between us. Get the search party going. Okay, so Fall River coming up here. That'd be you, Naughty, I'd say. Yeah, that'd be you. Alright. So at this stage, we're here. And we don't need to worry about talking to anyone just yet. As we approach this, you know, Charlie Vale, this is where you'd want to be making sure that your Mode C and ADS-B is now up and running. Right? Clem text me on VPilot, frightening the crap out of you. Brilliant. So we're going to be planning to get in contact with Boston relatively soon, right? So we're here at the moment. We're going to head over K-Town. That's the Taunton Municipal. And after that, we're pretty much saying, right, it's going to be over Bridgewater and then we're flying into the Class Bravo. But we need permission to transition into the Class Bravo, right? Now we'll try St. Townsend's again and let's see how that behaves. In order to get our frequencies, click on Boston. And we can say, right, give us the, do we have any ATC? No, there's no ATC there at the moment, unfortunately. So we're going to go in and click on info. We're going to go comms, approach, clearance, departure, ground, gate control, ramp, terminal. So we're going to be talking to approach. 11825, but the ATIS is going to be 135.0. All right, 1350. We might get it. Not yet. We'll have approach on 11825, so we can listen to that in a moment. Our synthetic vision is looking good. If you wanted to bring your map up here as well, right? So the in-sim map, it's going to do a fairly good job depicting different airspaces for you, yeah? I tend to go with this and then use something like Navigraph to one side. Now, this said there was going to be swamp area or bog area out to our right-hand side, yeah? So I imagine that's what this is here. See there, look. See this kind of marshy area? So that's adding up in my charts, right? There's a teeny tiny private airstrip in front of us. Look at the drift we have, lads, look. The wind is blowing us way over. With 15 knots hitting the side of us. Alright. Ramble in left a smidgen. And all we're doing with VFR, I mean, you're keeping an eye on your landmarks outside. VFR is 90% of what you're doing outside the airplane. We know that we're not in anyone's airspace. And we're above any kind of minimum altitudes as well. And you might be looking at the chart and you're saying to yourself, Jesus Murphy, how can you tell where you are, right? Well, there's that marshy kind of bog area, right? There's this Beverly Merricks is right here. Not worried about that. We're going to be overflying East Taunton Airport. And we can see the direction that the airport is going to go from our left to our right. Right? So that's our next waypoint. And we can see then, see all these major roads here? We can see all this stuff as well. So we got plenty of VFR landmarks. And then as we ramble up towards Bridgewater, this is where we're going to be giving Boston a shout. So K-10 is ahead of us. So we're looking out the window. We're trying to find another airport. Do we see one somewhere going from left to right? There's something here. Can we see it from outside? Yeah, there it is right there, look. Right. Directly below us. Alright. So we need to do a small left turn on this one. It's just the wind blowing us slightly off course, but that's grand, right? Now we're at 3,500 feet. That's quite okay. So next up is going to be Bridgewater. So we can see now we're coming up to a built-up area. Yeah? So 1350, the Boston ATIS. Don't seem to be getting it yet though. We're still a ways out. So Bridgewater, this built-up area, that's it here. We can see it. Yeah. And this is where we want to be talking to Boston. Now, we should be able to get the ATIS from here. I don't know why that's not working. Chart itself will have the frequency to contact. Yeah. 124.1. So I was looking for approach. Let's see here now. Contact Boston approach 124.1. Okay. Boston approach November 235 Romeo Mike VFR request. Some of those signals ain't nothing. And remember, we can't get in
Romeo Mike, say your destination airport and approach request.
Why is that going to Norwood? So we want Boston approach. 11825 will try. Boston approach November 235 Romeo Mike. It's thinking about it. Boston approach. Say your destination and airport request. Okay, why can't we hear you, Chief? Boston approach, November 235 Romeo Mike. Request transition to the Bravo and to land at Boston. So because this is the correct frequency, it just...
5 Romeo Mike, transition approved. Expect vectors for runway 33 left at Boston.
Transition approved. Expect vectors for runway 33 left at Boston for 5 Romeo Mike. Right, we're laughing. We've just got permission to enter because it said transition approved or cleared to the Bravo airspace. So we've asked permission to get in there. We now have permission to get in. We did that before we entered the airspace. Bridgewater was our waypoint. If they didn't come back to me, I'd have done a UE and just stood in this area. Or you could have descended, right? You could have descended. So we're going to expect vectors for 33 left. They're going to bring us in this way. We're going to expect vectors. All right. We're maintaining our altitude, so let's see what it does. So we're expecting vectors for the runway for 33 left. The whole point of this is we have to have permission to enter this airspace, right? Now, if you had live ATC on, it'd nail it, right? Because they're going to be talking to you. We've now entered the Class Bravo airspace. It's active between 3,000 and 7,000. We're at 3,500, but we've been cleared to it. They probably would give us a squawk, probably, right? This hasn't, but usually they give you a squawk code because they're going to be like, you need to appear on the radar screen rather. So chances are they would have given us the squawk code. We won't worry about that for now. Is the mallet a VRP and TIP?
Report passing through 5,000.
The mallet head.
Climbing to 7,000 will report passing 5,000 FedEx 1482 heavy.
Boston.
I maintain flight level 320, Dublin under 1.
So speed is good, alt is good.
991, contact Boston Center on 133.325.
And looking at what we're doing here, we're expecting 3-3, so we can kind of ramble this way. We don't need, like, we haven't been vectored yet, right? So we're pretty much heading straight towards the airport. Might do a little bit of a left turn here. Just with that wind, we got a 13 knot wind, yeah? So we'll see Boston Logan appear just ahead of us. Got a few more minutes to go. But I hope this makes sense to you, lads. What we're trying to do, and see how all that all the airspace is layered, yeah? That's what it's all about. When you're looking at the different layers of how the airspace works, you can fly under or over. That doesn't really matter, yeah? So for example, we have... Where's this now? So if I just do Class Bravo.
FedEx 1249, heavy descend and maintain 3000 airport, 12 o'clock 20 miles.
So looking at the Class Bravo.
FedEx 1249 heavy.
So yeah, let's have a look at this guy. So see the way you have the mode C kind of veil, and that's where you need to have ADSB and all this, right? As you fly higher and then closer, see the way this is how the Class Bravo looks like, yeah? From the surface up. The closer you get to the aircraft, the lower the airspace becomes active. Does that make sense? Think about it. Your airplanes take off and arrive, so that's why it goes up like that. Think of the V, yeah? But it's layered because you have all these different shelves, variable floors. So we're coming in kind of this way here at around 3,500 feet. So we're under some of the higher level, but we're below... you know, we're under the higher level, but we're below the lower levels. So that's the idea behind it. So where we're flying at the moment, our restrictions at the moment are from 3,000 feet up to 7,000 feet. But now we're entering the next area, which is going to be from the surface up to 7,000 feet. So in this area where we're currently flying, if we were at 2,000 feet or 8,000 feet, we're not inside his airspace, we're away from it. That makes sense? If we want to overfly Boston at 8,000 feet here, we're not in his airspace. So it's understanding a Class Bravo, and like, you don't get a busier airport than Class Bravo. These are massive, huge. They're the biggest of the airports. So knowing that you can absolutely fly in these areas, provided you're staying above or below the airspace requirements. If you wanted to enter the airspace, because it's Class Bravo, you need specific clearance to do so. Same with charities, and you need permission to ramble into these areas. So we were given clearance, which is great. We're expecting runway 33 left. Here's Boston downtown, and there's the airport. So at some stage, they need to vector us in, yeah? So we're going to slow things down a bit.
Boston approach. Roger.
Maintain 4,000.
Now, usually at a Class Bravo airport like this, because in the real world, and usually on VATSIM,
contact Boston Tower on 124.725.
it's going to be a lot busier, right? They won't necessarily want to have general aviation at this range, at this altitude. Why? Because this is where your airliners come in at speed. So they'd keep us very low, out of the way of everyone. And also out of other things like wake turbulence, this kind of jazz, yeah? So we're expecting vectors. They haven't given us a shout yet. Boston approach, November 235 Romeo Mike is 6 miles. We have a visual on runway 33 left. We're a little bit high there, Chief.
Flight Romeo Mike, cleared for the visual approach to runway 33 left at Boston.
Cleared for the visual approach, runway 33 left at Boston, 5 Romeo Mike. Easy now. Alright. Watch your speed. Now usually they'd put you over to tower. Do you know, they wouldn't clear you in for this. Oh no, we're clear for the visual approach. We haven't been cleared to land. You can see Clem and Adam just transitioning into the Bravo. Yeah, super.
Navy on 553 Alpha Bravo, maintain 3,500 traffic at your tree, up and down the same altitude.
So we're descending.
Traffic inside 553 Alpha Bravo.
I think that's 33 left. It looks like 33 left, so we're going to aim for that. We're clear for the approach. We should be handed over to Boston Tower now shortly. Let's see what happens. 33 left is a huge runway. Massive. Alrighty, easy, does it? Yeah, it's a huge runway. It's awesome, isn't it? So we are cleared for the visual approach, but we haven't been cleared to land yet. So I'll be expecting your freaks to change very shortly. It should work, but we'll see what happens. Because we should be in the tower scope by now. Alright, speed is good. A little bit bumpy with the wind. We're alright. We're 14 knots on the cross. You would take off and land 5 times in that? Probably, man. Look at the length of it. Can you imagine what the landing fees are like in Boston for this airplane? Like, could you imagine? Crazy.
KLM 945 cleared for the visual approach, runway 9er report 3 mile final.
Cleared visual 9er will report 3 mile final KLM 945.
I suppose we tell this lad we're on a final, will we?
United 2607 Boston approach.
Boston approach, November 235 Romeo Mike is on a 3 mile final, runway 33.
T-Lux 5536, contact Hanscom Tower on 118.5.
Just clear us, mate.
5 Romeo Mike, cleared to land, runway 33 left, wind 260 at 7 knots, altimeter 29.68.
Clear to land, 33 left, 5 Romeo Mike. So what usually would happen, they'd hand you over to tower. But maybe if there wasn't tower available on VATSIM, for example, there was only the center, that's what you'd be talking to, yeah? Right, Gareth coming down it. We'll leave that guy quiet for a minute just in case they tell us to do something else. We're landing and that's the end of it. Right, so watch the wind. Now this is a very, very long runway at Boston, and I'm gonna, like, a long landing is what I'm going for here. The reason being is the GA ramp is down the very far end. This is Flight Tampa's Boston scenery. It's friggin' awesome. It's a really good scenery. Easy now. Look at the weather. This is real world weather. Where would you get it?
Air Canada 1203. The traffic ahead of you and to your left.
If this is 33 left, is there a 33 right? Yeah, there is 33 right. Yeah. Yeah, so ATC could actually say long landing approved.
Delta 499, contact Boston Tower on 128.8.
Easy now. You could get something like long landing approved, or they give you a different runway, depending on what's happening, yeah? So I'm going for a long landing here. That's why I'm a little bit high, but it's totally grand. I'm not too worried yet. Now, the chances of getting general aviation aircraft like this into Boston ain't gonna happen. It's just very rare you would see this. It's like a Cessna coming into Dublin. It doesn't happen that often, you know? Not to say it can never happen. Of course it can happen, but unlikely. Now, for this Wings flight, you know, they're telling you to do it at Boston, but, you know, you could go, you can transition to a Bravo and land at, you know, a Charlie airport, or a Delta for that matter. You know? Alright, watch the speed. Oh, we'll try and put it down gently. Easy now. Look at the crab of the wind, isn't that awesome? Gear is down and locked. Easy, easy. There's a little bit of a bounce, but we're down. Watch the wind. Keep it on center line, Murph. And we're looking good. Alrighty then.
FedEx 1210, fly heading 280, descend and maintain.
Cape Air has 414s and now TechNams flying in and out of there. Oh, nice. Alright, so the GA ramp from memory, you're over here somewhere, wasn't it? There's American. Yeah, I think it's over there. Or is it over there? Yeah, it's over here. Alright, vacate. Left onto Bravo. And then right over here, yeah? Well, this is Alpha, but sure, listen. Bloody hell, the taxiway is like a friggin' runway, look. Size of the place, man. Size of the place. Right. There's Lima. FBO is this way, so I'll head up to where the FBO is. Keep straight. Yeah, it's over on the left, I think, isn't it? Or is it up the top here? Here's your charts, Murphy, you big idiot. Yeah, no, we're okay. You're okay. It's up here on the left. It's where the FBO is. Over to Signature. Signature will look after us. They're a great bunch of lads. Right? So there's Signature. Landing lights off. Strobes off.
American 1280.
And we shall... We'll just hang a left here. You can get around the back of the building here, but we'll just go down by Signature. Dee-dee-dee-dee. Easy now. 25% of your fuel? Yeah, right. Just to taxi. So this is the GA ramp. All this area here. So we'll brakes on. Power back. Pitot off. Transponder off. Automatically goes to ground. That's handy. Close that and mags off. Exit lights. Fuel pump. And open her up. Right, so let's do a quick review of this flight, right? Volante, balls. Did I have a Volante working? No. It's okay, we can still review our flight. So what we did, lads, just to run over it, we took off from Quonset State Airport, alright? We stayed under the Class Charlie. We stayed in the Delta at 1,000 feet. We left this airspace because we were using these bridges here, look. So once we left this magenta line, this was the Class Charlie. Once we left that area, we got to the bridge, then the second bridge. We started to climb then, alright? We started climbing. We got to 3,500 feet and we started heading out this way. We saw the Tiverton Tower, big massive tower. We went over the lakes. We saw Fall River. We continued on up. We saw the bogs. We flew over Taunton Municipal. We continued on straight. We got in contact with Boston Approach in and around Bridgewater, and they gave us clearance into the Class Bravo airspace. And we gave them our intentions to say, hey, look, we're going to land. All right. So we rambled in. They told us to expect vectors. That didn't happen, but we continued on. And eventually we got a landing clearance for runway 33 left. We did a very long landing, touched down around here, and then we parked up. And this is where we are over the signature. We're on the GA ramp. All right. So for that wings flight, yes, we absolutely need ATC to be on for us to pass that flight. But this is a great way, perhaps, of just testing it. Bit of practice work, yeah. So let's have a look on VATSIM radar now. Did any live spur on at all from the Boston Virtual ARTCC? No. Oh, there is someone up there. Windsor Locks are on. New Haven, that's the name of that place. So we're in Boston at the moment. The next flight, so entering a Class Bravo, right? That's entering the Class Bravo. But what about exiting a Class Bravo? All right. So let's come down here and have a look at this. Exiting a Class Bravo, right? So this wing flight travels from Boston up to Nashua Airport without flight following, much like we've just done on today's flight. So we flew into the Class Bravo, and this flight is going to be flying out of a Class Bravo. Okay? All right. In this one, you're going to exit the airspace. And as explained in WINGS VFR 3, it's extremely important for VFR pilots to know the depiction of and the requirements for different airspace classes. The airspace class depicted on the sectional chart. So we can see the Class Bravo, we can see the Class Charlie, we can see a Class Delta, and we can also see the Class Echo. All right. This list, this is all in our own ground school document that's available over on the website. So you can see all this kind of crack here. If you come back up to the information and you look at the airspace, this is all noted here. And it explains to you what you do in each of these airspaces. Yeah. You know, to enter this, you must establish two-way radio, but no specific clearance is required for Charlie airspace, right? You need to be talking to them before you get in there. All right. Class Delta, two-way radio communication is required, but like Class Charlie, specific clearance isn't needed. So once you're talking to them, they got you. Here's the important point. If you haven't made if you haven't established two-way radio communication, you're not allowed into the Delta or the Charlie airspace. And we have to be so careful when we talk about two-way radio communication. If I called up Nantucket Tower, 5 Romeo Mike, 5,000. If they responded back to me and they said something like, if they responded back and they said 5 Romeo Mike stand by, well, I haven't actually made two-way radio communication at that point. We haven't conversed. He's telling me to stand by or break. They can't deal with you. So it's only when they acknowledge you, 5 Romeo Mike, Roger, or radar contact, or, hello, or altimeter. That makes sense? So just be careful on that. When they say you need to establish two-way radio communications, it's when you actually have two-way communications. Yeah. Corn Wolf, thank you very much indeed, man. Cheers, you absolute ledge. 24 months. Jesus. 24 months. So that's what they mean by that. All right. And then all the different class of airspaces are explained here in our ground school document. All right. Thank you, Muse. Then we get into golf, airspace, and so on. So this flight, in addition to the class of airspace, you'll encounter special use airspace while flying in VFR. It includes airspace for military operations or restrictions for security or government activity. We've already had a look at that. They were looking at our TFRs. All right. Before departing, you need to plan a route from Boston over to Nashua. While it is possible to use GPS to fly direct between both airports and navigate around restricted airspace, planning a route on visual landmarks and other navigation aids is good practice. It's exactly what we've done on the way in. We could have just gone direct, but it was trying to train our eyes to be looking outside of the window. All right. Before departing, you're going to need to plan a route from Boston to Nashua, so we know we have to do that. One possible route shown below. However, since it is a VFR flight, you may fly any route of your choosing, provided you're able to remain clear of controlled airspace once you leave Boston's Class Bravo, and you're no longer in two-way radio communication with ATC. When you plan the flight, keep in mind you won't know which runways are in use at Boston until you receive your taxi instructions. So ensure you pick an initial navigation point that is far enough away from the airport and doesn't conflict with the approach or departure path of any runway. Ooh. For example, the Blue Hills Observatory, which is 10 miles southwest of Boston, would be a poor choice for a first waypoint since it lies directly on the approach path for runway 4 left. If the runway was in use, ATC would likely prevent you from flying in that area in order to ensure separation between you and the landing aircraft. The first navigation point what these lads went with, they've picked the town of Reading, which is about 13 nautical miles from Boston on the Boston VOR radial, and it's far enough away from the airport to prevent a conflict. After deciding on your route, plan your cruise altitude, remembering cruise altitudes will be in the thousands plus 500 feet because you're VFR. Eastbound fly odd, westbound fly even. Okay, so if we're flying up to Nashua, which is up here, we're heading westbound. That's west, right? Now you might say, it is northwest. It's west, right? So that's the direction. So whatever altitude we're flying at, it's going to be plus 500 feet. Westbound, it's going to be an even altitude at 500 feet. So that could be 2,500, 4,500, 6,500, whatever. Recall that the rules do not apply when flying below 3,000 feet. We mentioned that earlier on. So if it's only a short flight and we're not going to be above 3,000 feet, well, we could stay below it. Let's keep that in mind, right? So I'm just looking at the time. We probably won't have time to fly this, but what I think we'll do, lads, we might plan this, right? So let's plan this flight together. So we're going to be starting off at Boston, right? And we're going to be heading up to Nashua, which is here. Now, direct, it's what, 34 nautical miles? It's only 20 minutes. But the objective of this flight, we have to stay out of the Class Bravo. As in, we need to exit the Class Bravo. All right? Okay. Let's have a look. So they were saying, use the town of Reading, which is here, is it? Where's Reading? Nashua. Here's Reading here. So they use that as an initial fix. Fly up to Reading. Let's have a look at the airspace first. There's TFRs, they haven't changed, right? But there's also other airports. See this? We got to be careful. Bedford is there. We got Beverly up here. So if we're flying between the two of these, because they're deltas, yeah, these are delta airports. We don't want to be flying in. We need two-way radio communication. We want to be doing this off the beaten track. So when we take off from Boston, right, let's say they're going to give us runway 33 left for a departure. Let's just say for the crack. Well, we know in the initial area around Boston, it's from the surface up to 7,000 feet. The next veil is going to be 2,000 to 7,000 feet. Okay? Then it goes 3,000 to 7,000 feet. then it goes 4,000 to 7,000 feet. So that is, it's going like that, the layers, right? So if we pick an altitude to say, right, tell you what, we're going to take off, we're going to fly out, and we're going to fly at, I don't know, 1,500 feet. That means technically, as soon as we're clear pretty much of the airfield and whatever, we're gonna quickly, in 8 nautical miles, we're going to be quickly outside of that airspace. Okay. Now, there's other things on this map we need to be aware of. See these altitude numbers? See the 1.6 and we got a 1.0. So let's say, right, we're going to fly over the town of Reading. Now, what's there in terms of a visual reference point? It's not very easy to see it on your VFR sectional. Sure it's not. It's telling us there's something here. See this Wakefield? But what is Wakefield? Wakefield in Reading? Couldn't tell you. So Wakefield in Reading. What is it? That's not giving me the answer. Wakefield. VP. What's that mean now? It's a VFR. Wakefield. VFR. Wakefield Municipal Airport. No. Wakefield Winter Plant. No. The Interstate Highway. Yeah. You could use highways, sure. But check this out, right? If we go to maps here for a second, right? Accept all that. Right. We're not in Ireland. On over here for a second. Right. So let's go in and have a look at Boston, right? We're going to go up here now. So we have Boston and then we're going to have Reading up here somewhere. There's Wakefield, right? Okay. So it must be this lake here. Is it? Wakefield. There's a lake. So there's your visual reference point. Okay, there's a big lake at Wakefield. Let's have a look on the map. Turn this into satellite. Yeah, that's going to be relatively easy to spot from the air. Okay? Relatively easy because, okay, there's lakes down here, there's lakes over there, but over this neck of the woods near Reading, there is a visual reference point. We can see it on our charts here as well. So that to me, let's go with that divil. Now, Colonel Fork quite rightly said, Murph, you got highways, you've railways, you've friggin', what are these gadgets? Power lines. So you've train tracks and everything here. So, okay, well, let's look at the features here. The highways are going to be relatively easy to follow. Sure they are. Okay. So what's this? I-93. Yeah, we can follow that. There's a golf course. Relatively small, but it's still a golf course, right? Amazon Robotics, so you got a big industrial estate. These are the things. Where's this now? Murph, look up your missing windmill when you're in maps. The windmill you couldn't find is a raising, lowering mast. It's collapsible. No way! DK, thanks for that. Thanks for that. When you're looking at your maps, when you're flying over this, it's a lot harder to spot normal features. And what I mean by normal features, when you're in a built-up area, if you're looking at maybe roads or, you know, railways, it's very difficult to spot them because, well, sure, there's loads of roads, right? And in the States, the roads are massive compared to what we have in Europe. They just are. They're main streets. Some of the roads are massive, right? I remember driving, you know, I drove from Houston out to San Antonio on what was classed like a normal dual carriageway. That was larger than any motorway in Ireland in terms of width. And it was like, it was a standard dual carriageway. Bigger than any motorway we have in the country. Nuts, right? So again, it goes into your planning. So let's have a look up here once again. All right. So at Reading, now we can see the roads. See these are roads. These are your interstate roads, your highways. So, okay. Here's a lake. What about the next one? Do we need another one? Well, we'd probably get away with this without it. So once we hit this lake, okay, well, what else can we see? Well, we've got some more visual reference points along the way, right? You have, what's that, 495, right? Over Lowell, we have more visual reference points, right? There's a big building there, for example. The Wang Towers. Wang. Aircraft requesting to transit the Lawrence class Delta airspace at or above 2500 contact Boston approach. That's interesting. So here's Lawrence. We need to stay away from him at or above 2500, right? We need to be careful there. On the left-hand side, we have to worry because we've got Bedford right beside us, yeah? So I think Reading is giving us a nice, decent in between, you know, Beverly and Bedford, but it's also keeping us away out of Lawrence. All right. We need another couple of places here. So look, here's a river we can find. What's that? The Merrimack River. Okay, so when we get to Lowell, is it Lowell or Lowell? See the way we got an ESB, we have a power substation here. Okay, well, that's something we can fly. Can we find that in the sim? Well, let's have a look. So we're looking at Lowell and we're heading out the road, right? All right, here's Lowell. And it's a power substation. That's the Home Depot. That's friggin' huge, right? So let's have a look. So there's the river. All right. So there's the river, the motorway, and then you have a power substation. So here's the motorway. So we're looking for something out here. There's a power substation out here somewhere. Don't think it's over that far. So we're now looking for some sort of a power plant. This looks promising. National Grid. Here you go. Is that it there? There's a pond beside it. To show the pond. So there's a substation and there's like a bit of a river right beside it. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like it, isn't it? But you see the point we're making. This is about how do we figure out where this stuff is. So you're trying to find stuff, and like a great advantage is using like your Bing Maps or your Google Maps, because you will see things on this map. This is exactly how it's going to look like from altitude, right? So you're going to say, hang on a second. Look, there is something out here that I can keep an eye on it. There's, here it is here. Look, that's the substation. There you go. So will we see that? Of course we're going to see that. We're going to see that. That is a massive substation. That's, well, we can't see it from the ground, but that's it there. We've just found it, look. Yeah. All right, power industry. So we're going to fly over that divil. That's a visual reference point. We've just made one. And as pilots, you have what are noted or published visual reference points, or you kind of make your own. So, all right, we're going to fly up here until we see this substation. And I now know by looking at the maps, well, this is what it looks like. There's a little area to the south or to the east of it, a little area to the west of it. That makes sense? Then we continue on. We know that we're over Lowell. We're going to say, right, well, we cross the substation, then we cross the river. You can see the river. We're going to know we're over the river. And I think from there, lads, we're pretty much safe to fly straight in. There's Nashua. That's the airport we're going to be landing at. All right. It's a Class Delta airspace. So we know inside this area, it's from the surface up to 2,700 feet. Now, what's interesting here is the airport is actually sitting inside a Class Charlie airspace. And that airspace starts at 2,500 feet and it goes up to 4,300 feet. Nashua starts at the surface and it goes up to 2,700 feet. So we're going to be landing into Nashua. We're inside the Nashua Class Delta, but you do have a Charlie here as well. And you can see where this veil is for the Charlie at 2,500 feet. So if you're at 2,500 feet, you're going to be in the Class Charlie. If you're at 2,300 feet, you're remaining inside the Class Delta. That makes sense? It's more important to say, right, if we're on the southern part, see just the blue. Well, from the surface up to 2,700 feet, that's Class Delta. What if we fly at 3,000 feet? You're grand. You're no longer in his airspace. Great. But this is where they're warning you. If you go into this area in the Class Charlie is active between 25 and 4,300. Even if you're on the north side, if you're just inside the airport, this area, you think, hey, I'm okay. I'm at 3,000 feet. I'm above the Class Delta. Class Charlie takes over. It's the higher airspace or the larger airspace that takes over. That takes precedence, right? Does that make sense, lads? Does it make a bit of sense? Flight planning using your sectional charts, and it's quite busy up in New England. This whole region, it's very busy, right? But like, you know, you can head further south and there's some really nice places you can go flying, you know, down south, Texas, all that neck of the woods. So our flight plan for this flight, well, it's going to be something like this. It's only a 20-minute flight. And it's exiting the Class Bravo. So we're going to say, right, well, at what altitude are we going to want to fly from? Well, I would say we're going to be very comfortable at, 2,500 feet. I think. All right. I would say 2,500 feet. If you're entering that Charlie and above 2,500, you ain't landing. Yeah, you can say that. But you could be overflying it. That's what we mean, yeah? You could be overflying it. So I reckon 2,500 feet is going to be grand. We'll start descending as we start approaching Nashua, because don't forget, when we're going to be talking to them to land, right? And remember, the class Charlie, we only need to talk to them from 2,500 feet on this side, but be careful over here. It's 1,500 feet on that side. Look at that area. That's actually quite unique. This area right here, that's between 1,500 feet and 4,300 feet. I wonder where that is. Probably the airport down here has something to do with it. Not quite sure. Like this is it's a grand, handy little route, And again, see the way it can be. It's kind of difficult seeing all the information on this. You're probably looking at this like I would look at, Thunder. Huh? But spend some time learning this crack, lads, because this will really stand to you. Right? Once you understand how the airspace works from a VFR perspective, IFR, different kettle of fish. It's more linear. You're flying on waypoints. They're just adding you to different waypoints. Fly from here to there, direct there, go to that. The altitudes they're going to control. They'll do all of that with IFR. VFR is always going to be harder because you need to be aware of all this. However, once you kind of half figure it out, and I only mean half figure it out, then it goes into your IFR stuff. From the radio procedure or what to say to ATC or how to say it, again, VFR, it's quite difficult. It's not really scripted. There are certain things that we got to pick up. For example, it's not taxi to runway 16 via, right? Or taxi runway 1, or, taxi Alpha Bravo, hold short runway 16. They don't give you holding points or a clearance limit. They'll just say it's runway 34, taxi Alpha Bravo, hold short, whatever. You know what I mean? But spend some time messing around. Plan your own flights during the week as well. And then I'm gonna try and get some sort of ATC coverage from Boston Virtual, probably at the weekend. We don't need to do it on a stream. I'll get these 2 flights done. The next flight then is kind of putting this all together because it's now a cross-country flight, right? So on this one, they're going to be flying you from Nashua. You're going to fly to 2 other airports of your choosing, and then you kind of head back again. That's actually pretty cool. So it's going to be controlled, uncontrolled. So they have you here out of Nashua, all the way down to, what's that, Concord, is it? Oh, that's Lebanon. And then all the way back to Concord, and then back to Nashua. That's a cross-country flight, yeah? Just remember the Swedes. Neod Sweden. Oh, very good. Northeast odd, southwest even. Scott, that's a very good way of doing it. Just remember the Swedes, yeah. Very good. But yeah, so that's a cross-country flight VFR, and then once you clear the VFR stuff, they do this Class Bravo heli route. It's not just, they're called heli routes. It's you can do it in fixed wing as well. This is flying in teeny tiny little corridors, very, very close to the city. They have this similar in New York. You can fly up, and they do the same in Boston, which means you can actually fly up and have be so close to the buildings. Yeah, that's going to be a bit of fun. But then you're into the IFR stuff, and the IFR stuff, that's where we're start with aircraft that you're comfortable with, like everything, but something that has a bit of punch to it. We'll go through our introduction, VOR navigation. You guys should know VOR navigation. If you're not, let me know. Airways. We'll have to look at some of the low altitude and high altitude airways for IFR. Then we talk about our arrivals, our departures. You can get into your non-precision, then you can get into your full ILS. Again, you're going to know the crack there. I think the main points we want to look at here is going to be introduction to the IFR. We'll talk about the airways, SIDS and stars, grand, full approaches and untowered. We need to look at that. We can do a bit of non-precision stuff, back courses. Then you have an IFR check ride. Missed approaches, again, it's going to be published on your chart. Holes a little bit tricky, but they're fairly similar once you know how to program them into your aircraft. But if you can do a manual hold, that's even better. Radio navigation arrivals, holes, and what else can we do here? Into the mountains, right? IFR flying, airspace and arrivals, circle to land, and then charted visual flight procedures. There's a ton of stuff in this that, you know, they'll hold your hand. This is a great, from the practical flying, this is great. But once we start the IFR stuff, we'll probably start it the week after next. This is where we're going to focus heavily on what we're doing. I would recommend everyone complete these wings flights. I'm not going to do them all on the stream. I'll probably do them again later in the year, right? But this is a conversion course. So learning the airspace, that's so crucial for this conversion because the airspace operates different in the States. The voice procedure stuff, we'll figure that out. We'll get there, right? But it's like, if you can just get the airspace down to a fine art, that's it. You've nailed it. Because you understand what the requirements are to get in and get out of these different airspaces that they have. You know what I mean? It's somewhat easier than what we have in Europe. You're not worried about the different transition levels and all this. Like it doesn't apply. And then tonight we covered it again in a bit more detail, was the temporary flight restrictions, TFRs, or special airspace. All right. So if you focus on the airspace, if you focus on sectional charts and learning what TFRs are and how they affect your flights, that's so much of the heavy lifting done for this type of course. It's so much of it. You know, when we start doing the IFR stuff, it is well more scripted. You get into slightly different clearances. So clearance uses the actual craft structure, clearance, route, altitude, frequency, and transponder. Craft. We'll go through all of that. And then, your voice procedure for IFR flying. If you really want to get your hands dirty flying in the US, it's got to be VFR flying, man. It's absolutely incredible. And like, when you have ATC that understand how the VFR side of the fence works, it's just brilliant. It's great crack. Great crack. Flight restriction. What's this now? Caution. Ew. What's NSF, lads? It's military, I'd say, is it? So prohibited area, and it's also a restricted area. So prohibited, you ain't getting in there, not a hope of it. You're not allowed to enter it. Restricted, you can fly in there so long as the restriction is not active. These are all the other little things you learn about your charts. There's tons of YouTube videos all about charts. I find them fascinating. When I first saw a sectional chart, it confused the absolute bejesus out of me. I was like, what is this? I don't understand anything. And now, slowly but surely, you start picking it up. Right? They're class, man. They're class. Special flight rules. Special regulations apply to all aircraft operating from the surface to, but not including flight level, 180. Kodiak, thank you very much indeed, man. 2 months. Cheers. That's the NSA. Is that where they are? But we can do it. So, like, we can look it up. FAA, so P40. P40 FAA. What is it? No, P40 FAA. Published flight info prohibited areas. Okay. So what's P40? Can we see it? Notice use of published flight information on prohibited areas. Yeah, I want to see it though. Use of published flight prohibited areas, P40. Access restriction. This document contains for more information. Current orders. Let's have a look. Search P40. Search. Status is cancelled, so I need to see an active one. Is it that one? Active. Order number. I just want to see P40. This is cancelled, but what does it go into? Use of ozone depleting substances. What? Just, down the rabbit hole you go. But you can do all these searches. The FAA is a great website. And not only that, lads, while we're on the FAA, have a look at their own training elements, because how to become a pilot, that's all there, right? But They have tons of stuff. In particular, it comes down to where's the handbooks? Handbook and manual. Where's this now? Aircraft, aviation handbooks and manuals. Aerodynamics. Oh, hang on now. Airship. No. Balloon. No. Instrument flying. Handbook. Like the amount of stuff they have, lads. Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, 2023. Douche. The amount of stuff, lads. Like, and it's these to be hundreds of pages, right? Camp David, Command Colonel Fork, and Schutz. Well done, lads. So all of this information is available over on the FAA website. Like, here's a manual. What's this? Some of these are like 500 pages. This is 500 pages. Like, they're giving you all the information. Now, a lot of it can be overkill. I mean, it's not going to apply to everyone flying on VATSIM or just flying in a flight sim, but it's very interesting stuff to learn all about it. And the FAA, they've put together some really good stuff. So have a read through it, have a glance through it. It's like further reading and all this jazz, right? See how you get on. As I say, try and plan a couple of different flights. Use Sky Vector. It's free, right? It's free. So try plan a couple of different routes. And, you know, really focus on the consequence of, right, what's going to happen? Remember what I said, plan hard, fly easy. Put more time into your planning. And it'll make your flying that little bit easier. Like even this flight we're going to do out of Boston. We already know, yeah, we're going to head up to Reading, right? All right, fair enough. Open up the Boston tack there. We're going to head up to Wakefield because we know there's a lake there. We've already checked on the map. We're going to overfly Reading. Then we're going up to this substation before we get to the river at Lowell. And then we're straight in. Like, that's a very comfortable route to fly now. I'm happy enough with that. I got to look for the lake. I'm looking for the substation. We'll go over the highway. Then there's a river. And then we're in. You get the idea? We get the idea. All right. So that's going to do us for tonight, friends. We don't have time to physically fly VFR4. And I'll try and get these done during the week because we will have ATC coverage at some stage from the lads in Boston. And I might give them a shout to jump on next week for us as well. So loads and loads and loads of fun. So I hope you found it helpful. Also keep an eye on our Discord, lads, because I do post additional information on our Discord when we have all this stuff done. So if you go down to where our ATC stuff is, all right, you'll see it in here. So this is from last week, kind of like a quick kind of just a summary of what we've done. And I'll post more information in here, just little reminders, you know what I mean? What we're working on, all right? I'd say a lot of you guys are probably looking forward to the IF4 stuff. That's when we're going to be flying the airliners. We will be doing a ton of this stuff, but once you're getting just that little bit more comfortable and familiar with how the airspaces work and saying, oh wait, crap, I can't go in there without talking to them. If you can, if that sinks in, we're laughing. All right. So thank you all, and then we get to go flying with Scott, 100%. Right, lads, we're back to you tomorrow for some trucking, and I got my indicator stocks. Brilliant. So thank you all so very, very much indeed for joining in tonight. We're back tomorrow from 1900 Zulu. Until then, have a very pleasant evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Fans, is Mike Roch in the chat? Mike Roch? That's brilliant. Hey everybody, is there a Mike Roch here? Is Mike Roch here? Did you see what happened to Matty Lonesome? Oh, that was brilliant. Did you see him? Maddie, are you okay? Are you okay, Maddie? Oh, Jesus. Oh. Fancy pedals.
Fancy pedals.
Uh-oh.
No. This is... Listen. It's a hurricane. It's a hurricane.